Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Best Darn Everything, our bi-weekly spin-off show where Richie and I take a break from talking about cartoons to talk about really just about anything we want to, sometimes even cartoons. But tonight we're not. We are talking about a comedy special. It's a comedy special by Netflix's definition. Something I'm honestly just really excited to talk about. We're talking about Bo Burnham's Inside, which came out this week. We're going to get into that real quick, but we have an awesome guest returning today. And of course, joining us, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I don't know if I honestly, in the last couple of hours, I've just decided I'm in a really happy mood today. Maybe it's because I watched somebody go crazy for 2 hours and I realized that, in Texas, we kind of had it pretty easy compared to the rest of the world.
Stuff ain't so bad, yeah.
We got a lot to talk about. I have a feeling Miles watched this more than he's watched every episode of The Simpsons combined at this point. So I know both of the other people on this panel will have plenty to talk about today. I'll quit wasting time. Throw it back to you. I did it the right way. The man, the myth, the Mr. Never Gonna Stop talking about this special for the rest of his life. It is Miles.
Honestly, since you touched on it before I introduced Ruth, I will say that I did want to put a warning that this might be an episode of the podcast that just doesn't end. We're just going to keep doing it forever. We're just going to talk about it on end, just like Bo Burnham wasn't going to finish his special. This thing is just going to keep recording. We might take some bathroom breaks at points or maybe catch a meal, but ultimately the three of us are just going to tag team. Yeah, we'll wipe the screen at one point. Yeah. It'll be good. But joining us today, returning, I think for like the third time, I know you've talked with me about Dungeons and Dragons, and I know you joined us both to talk about escape rooms. But welcome back to the show, Ruth Banks. How are you tonight, Ruth? I'm
good. How are you?
Doing very good. Excited to have you back on the show. I know you and I have been talking a lot already about this show, and I think much like Richie and I do a lot when we're talking about certain episodes of The Simpsons, we have to be like, shut the fuck up. We have to save this for the podcast.
Save it for Sunday.
Save it. We can't keep talking about this. But it definitely, I think, it touched both of us a lot, but we're going to talk about that right now. We'll get to that part later. But before we get into Inside, Ruth, is there anything just cool or special going on in your life that you want to brag about?
There's a really cool free comedy show every Friday in Austin at the Grandstand. So you should totally check that out.
Friday, I think I know a guy that's going to be on that show.
I think I do too. So, just this Friday, June 11th is a great time to check it out. But any Friday, also a great time. So
yeah. Totally cool. You've been killing it in stand-up in general, so just shout out to you and all your work. And you are at Funny for a Girl. That's not me making fun of you. You chose that hashtag that at tag, whatever. Cool.
Funny _for _ girl. Made it as complicated as possible.
So I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox real quick. I know we're both biting at the bit to get into this, but I'm actually going to put us on pause for a second because I have legitimately not heard a peep out of Richie about his thoughts. I think that I would like to just start, Richie, open up the floor, and why don't you just tell us a little bit about what your experience with Bo Burnham's Inside was like?
I knew there was a lot of hype going into watching it just because I'd seen reviews of it and they were very well received. And then I know that you both were really, really excited about it. So I feel like I was trying to rein back how I was going to feel about it. But even from the get-go, like from the beginning, I felt like I was watching something completely different, especially from a stand-up perspective that I'd ever seen before. And I actually found myself jumping ahead a little bit. I found myself trying to figure out if I was actually watching this stand-up comedian battling with minor parts of mental health issues or if he was acting and I don't know, he touches on a point. I've seen a little bit of Bo Burnham. I've also heard a lot, like in my car when I'm listening to stand up, it'll randomly cut to him. And when he said he took like a 5-year break because he was having panic attacks on stage, I was like, man, I need to figure out if that actually happened. And I was like, you know what, if only there was a podcast with people that have researched the hell out of this topic to tell me about it. But when I read details about him, I know he did a lot of acting in that time. So I was legitimately trying to figure out if he was acting or actually going through this stuff as he was filming it, which I found the parts, the the most interesting parts to me were the parts where like you see him getting frustrated, because I'm like, that must be Miles when he's editing. And then the thing that I really, really enjoyed about this was that all of his songs cut before the song was over. And it was almost like the lack of transition was his transition. And it was just a little bit off-putting the first few times. And then I was like, man, it's just got this whole vibe and style, and it's completely different than anything I've ever seen. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And then, of course, opening song, closing song, when he was like the internet salesman song, and then white women Instagram. Those were my favorite parts.
Honestly, that's a solid review, man. You
Hell yeah.
I watched that a lot more than just the once this afternoon, and you picked up on a lot of details that I think are really important to that special. So good for you. Ruth, I'll let you go ahead. We're going to go through it beat by beat on everything, but why don't you just go ahead and tell us your kind of, quick review of experience of watching the show.
Yeah. So Miles and I actually watched it together, and we did 2 watch throughs. One where we were just as quiet as possible, because it was very obvious from early on, like you said, Richie, that it was just like not like something we had seen before in the stand-up realm. And then we did a second watch through where we were able to make comments. So I have gotten to share some of this with you before, but I think there was a very villainous overtone to most of it. And I think a lot of that was intentionally so. The Welcome to the Internet song is a very villainous character he's playing.
Yeah. Almost devil-like in that song. Like, he almost feels like he's interpreting like a version of Satan.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the Problematic song where he's kind of owning his own past. But then there's also the little in-between shots where he loses his temper, knocks something over, like curses, like things like that. And the important thing and Richie touched on this, is that everything in there is something he made the decision to put in there. It's not like he sent all of this footage off to an editor and they cut it together with what they thought was the most, like, this is all his choice, something he did himself. So even the little moments, like there's that part in a song where he's like, I took a big breath, and he starts over.
That was a big one for me. Yeah.
He could have just edited the song, but he made that decision. So it's almost a forced genuineness that is very prevalent in stand-up that seemed to be a theme throughout the special. So the villainy seemed to range from the outright, like, problematic song to the subtler, like, I am just showing you how well I can recreate this exact emotion without, and I've done it 1,000 times kind of deal.
Robotic almost, in that, like, he's able just to emulate human emotion, even though at times it seems like he's very much admitting that he's not experiencing life like a lot of people are.
Exactly. And I thought it was, you kind of joked in the beginning about, it's by Netflix definition a comedy special. And that also is something that rang true to me, is that it was definitely funny and it was definitely engaging. But comedy special, it's not what you would think of for a comedy special.
Mm-hmm. Definitely not stand-up. I mean, there's only really a couple of moments that even reflect stand-up, and in both cases, it's him creating that as part of his world. It's not really
it's not even a joke in that situation.
Yeah.
It felt like the Truman Show to me in those moments.
That's a very, very cool comparison. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I thought it was interesting that, Bo didn't go out, as far as I know, at all during the pandemic stuff. I mean, not at all. I'm not saying he was like never left, but I mean, he wasn't like out at shows because he had stopped doing shows altogether. And yet there is that moment where he perfectly recreates exactly what every comedian does on stage.
So weird.
Shows.
Yeah.
So well, which is obviously something we know firsthand because we've been seeing it 1,000 times since the pandemic has happened. But it was weird seeing somebody who hasn't had it drilled into our heads like we have just nail it so immediately.
Yeah.
And which part are you guys talking about for those of us that aren't stand-up comedians?
So it's literally, he's acting like he's doing stand-up. He has a microphone in his hand. And
right. Literally has a stool and a mic stand.
And he says...
With a spotlight on him?
Yes.
And he basically says, well, hey, give it up to yourselves for, coming out, supporting live comedy. And it's so great that in these weird times, we can laugh together. And that's...
I've heard that a dozen times easy.
Oh, yeah. So many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just one of those moments of, again, like the fake genuineness. And then he does a weird thing about maps and pirates. And it's just, it highlights how nonsensical it is to be joking about stuff like that at times like this, which is also kind of a theme.
Yeah, there's definitely no segue like from what he was saying and to go to the pirate map, which to me was kind of the
which you mentioned his segues.
So obscure.
I think he was the one who does it. It's kind of a stereotype now in comedy, but I think he was the original one who just went, segues are weird. And then
during like one of his specials. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's always been a thing for Bo Burnham. Is his segues have always been jarring. He had like a Between the Microphones song one time in one of his specials.
And he did a little dance in between, and he does a lot of stuff too where he'll pretend to make a mistake and then the sound will cue in and it'll be like, that was on purpose, you are dumb.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And when you see that a lot in this special too, with like the thing that gets knocked over and then it falls down and it's at the clock that is
that's a dope ass shot for what it's worth. Like that is
a
so
very
cool.
Good segue. Yeah.
But it is just so oddly produced in so many ways. And a lot of that is true. I know you and I have kind of shared some TikToks with each other about the special. And one of them that we talked about during our second viewing, our kind of our own personal commentary track, if you will. One of them, the TikToks that we talked about during that, and then the TikTok was made about it, was about how, like, for instance, like the rage quit scene is what I call it, where he's like knocking stuff over and whatnot. Yeah. Like, he had to set that up. Like, he had to have the camera set up in a way. Like, I don't know if he knew just like how frustrated he was, something authentic was likely to come. I don't know if he just decided, hey, I'm going to leave this camera sitting over here just in case. And I don't know how it got to be, but that wasn't just like a random like accident. Like that was a produced moment. Exactly. In some manner.
And I feel the same way about the mess in some scenes.
Yes.
Which is like when he's laying down and saying the thing about like, maybe we shouldn't have commercialized like our children's brains. What's going into those? He said it better, as most things. But there's that mess of wires that's just like curling around his head. That's all very intentional. But I don't know why. Just very aesthetic, I guess.
So you just touched on something that I wrote a warning down for. I want to do a couple things. You joked about him saying it better, which is going to be honestly the case for just about everything we talk about tonight. I think we just kind of throw that out here. I put a pretension warning at the top of my notes that like, I'm afraid I'm going like, I'll just take from Bo Burnham's style. I'll talk about how I'm being pretentious before I'm pretentious, which somehow I think will make it less pretentious, but I know is actually making it worse. But
are you about to the pee that took a poo on this one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just want to say I'm going to compare myself as a comedian to Bo Burnham, and I feel like I'm going to come off as a complete douchebag doing that, but it's going to happen, and I know that he's just a more talented person than me, so it is what it is. But I do also want to say before we get started that I do think, well, first of all, this special gets very dark. There's absolutely no other way around it. I do think some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight are probably going to possibly get dark as well. So like mental health shout out. And if you are struggling with mental health and this has been affecting you or hasn't been affecting you, or just get help if you need it. Like that's super important. And, get help. That's all I'm saying. But this is admittedly a very, I would say mentally anguishing, like, special. It's hard to watch. There are moments where it is literally upsetting to look at the screen, and I don't think that's by accident. I think Bo intentionally did that, especially a couple scenes that we'll talk about where, I mean, he points the camera at you and lays down some really heavy shit. And I mean, this is I don't want to say hard to watch because I've literally watched it like a dozen times at this point, but there are moments of it that make you feel, if you are like a normal functioning human with emotions, it's going to upset you at points, I think is just a fair way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing I'll say about this special is it feels very claustrophobic, and that is also by intention. Yeah, 100%. And I will, he even talks about this in the show, but I do notice watching it that even from the very first shot where we see Bo come in through the door, this is a very odd room. I threw a little bit of like honestly, I've gotten obsessed. I've done like hardcore detective stuff. That is like a little like guest house outside of what I believe is his house. I know it's the same house or the same room that he records the like "I Hope You Can Be Happy" song at the end of his special "Make Happy." And it is, I believe, both the fact that Bo is a relatively tall person, and I do believe that door is also just smaller than average. But that moment when he walks in, he almost has to duck down. Mm-hmm. He has the light pointed right at you. It makes you feel instantly like stuck in a room, which is kind of the point of the show.
Yeah. And I think he does a good talking about, the idea of being inside, and that's the title, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. He talks a lot about different times he's been like stuck in a room in different ways. That means I think there are times he feels literally like put in a box by, whatever.
Society or his fans or whatever.
Like his fans, people who want to exploit him, things like that. But then also I think times like in his childhood, like when he, go to your room as like a punishment. And then, here in 2020, he was just getting ready to start stand-up again. And then the whole thing shut down, which if that doesn't feel like the biggest,
the whole world had a panic attack. Yeah.
That doesn't feel like, well, the world doesn't want me to do stand-up. Like I was going to come back and then the whole world stopped. Like I could totally see.
And that right there, like his experience probably, I mean, obviously even worse than a lot of us, but I know as comedians, when we watch that, this special brings up so many questions that we all struggled with. Things like literally, is comedy over? Are people even going to want to hear jokes anymore? I mean, these are legit conversations that I had with other comedians, ourselves included, where, I mean, it was a very scary time. Like, obviously, because we're all a bunch of self-centered pricks, the world was dying, but we're like, but stage time.
It's not stage time. Yes.
So I just thought that was interesting in itself. And I also think it was interesting how Bo immediately kicked it off with what I would consider to be somewhat of a surprise in that headband trick that he did with the disco ball. I think that moment right off the bat was kind of showing us like, hey, this isn't going to be the usual bag of tricks. Like I'm going to show off a little bit that I'm a creative fucking genius.
A creative dude. Yeah.
And I mean,
he did a lot with lighting and
yes, he
colors
did.
And yeah.
And he does a lot showing those shots. I mean, even before we ever get to any real sequence in this movie, I mean, he does like a very short song with that disco ball, and then it immediately cuts to like ominous overtones, which I even compared to horror movies, like the sounds they'll use early in a horror film before anything really bad happens. They kind of implant that idea in your mind with the, like certain tones that play, and they're showing this while he's doing all this like really tedious prep work, measuring things so they're perfect, setting up lights, setting up cameras. I mean, it really did set the motion that like what you're about to watch is going to be a dark ride.
So this is something that I didn't really know how to express until what you just said. For me, the whole special feels like that. It feels like the whole special is the pretense to something dark. And that makes me nervous for like, It feels like there's news that's going to come out or like that he's going to have something. I don't know.
Or he could fucking kill himself. I mean,
well,
like
that's the big
like, yeah.
I mean, there was an interview a long time ago where he talked about how he has his death date published on his website. And the dude's like, well, how are you going to know when you're going to die? And he's like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. Like,
and is that a reference to the line 7? I think it's like 20,000 years of this, 7 more to go at one point.
I checked. It isn't that.
That line specifically is kind of eating at me. There's two lines that really, we'll get to them when we get to those songs, but like there's two like mysteries in this that I'm like getting like, I'm basically Charlie Day connecting yarn places, like trying to like figure out like it was a 2-year-old in the song. Like it's it's pretty wild.
You're Cloverfielding this one. You did the same thing when that movie came out with all the found footage at the end of the movie that it showed.
Yeah, I remember that was a pretty cool little moment. And for a while that Cloverfield universe was pretty promising until that weird space one came out. But hey, what can you do? Was to see if I had anything. Yeah, I said like he's kind of showing off a little bit his editing. I don't mean that in like a bad way. He's just showing that he's prepping you that there's going to be some unusual things happening right off the bat. And then the real opening song, I guess that intro technically counts as the opening song, but like the first full-length production is a song that has been living rent-free in my head all week long, because this one really addresses a lot of the questions of things. You know, like, is comedy going to be around? Is it really an appropriate time to be making these jokes? Do people want this? And going a step further for me personally, as a 35-year-old white male, it's saying things like, white guys in this country have had the floor for like 300-400 years. And, you know, even if you're a person that wants to help, it doesn't mean we want to shut up. It's an unfortunate truth.
Well, it's the line, I want to help leave this world better than I found it, and I fear that comedy won't help, and the fear is not
unfounded.
The fear is not unfounded.
That one sits with me hard all the time.
Because so I got into comedy because I was recovering from spinal surgery, and I had nothing to do but lie in bed and watch Netflix comedy specials, and that really helped me having that distraction. And so I've always said I want to get into comedy to help distract people. And now we're in a time where I don't know if being distracted is a good thing. I think maybe everyone needs eyes up, you know?
Yeah. Shed light on instead of pull light, you know, off of. Yeah. That kind of, you know, I have closing thoughts for later, but that definitely touches on that concept as well of what does it mean to be a comedian in 2021 and how, you know, we have a unique platform. And how can we use it for a positive thing while still ultimately being funny? Because that's literally the primary responsibility of the job, is you have to make people laugh, but also there's bigger points in this world that we can get across than like, I farted, or, you know, whatever. I slipped on a banana peel. Yeah, what's a good classic stand-up joke? How should I know? I have no concept of this. Right off the bat, too, I wanted to point out in this song, this is where we really start to see him play with the concept of the laugh track, which he puts in intentionally awkward places.
And it definitely rubs you that way, too, which, I mean, just adds to the whole ominous feeling of this whole special for the most part.
To me, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ruth. You're good.
I was just going to say there's a few times in the special, I think the laugh track is one of them, where he's almost pointing at the fans and say, because there's the part where he's like watching a video of himself that everybody's laughing at, and he's like making this awful face. I think it's kind of accusatory of the fans of saying, like, you've been laughing at me having this panic this whole time, essentially. And I think the laugh track is part of that. Like, you've always laughed at inappropriate times kind of deal. Sorry.
Richie, did you have something that you wanted to add on that?
Yeah.
No, she's making my mind wander, because then, like, the smile he has towards the end, I mean, that kind of plays into that and that whole aspect too, where he's becoming one of them as well. But no, it's I just obviously I haven't watched this as many times as you guys, but like the first like, because at this point we're 15 minutes into it after all the setup and everything, and it's just the whole time I was like. At this point, I'm like, what the hell am I about to see this guy do?
Yeah.
Like, that's literally the thought I had at this point. And the song that you're referencing right now made me laugh. Like, I very much enjoyed it. And I was like,
oh, so
okay,
much.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really great jokes in the background too. Like, I mean, simple things like when he's trying to add up like the formula for comedy. It's literally just 69 plus 420 over and over again, which are like such great comedy staples. It's like the idea of like an open micer humping the stool. It's just something that you see happen a lot in comedy scenes. So, and then the whole blackboard. There's this whole formula that talks about like time and tragedy, which it somehow, like, I think it ended up with like 9/11 equals hilarious. I don't know. It was something like that. It was
formula, like
it was similar in that regard. Yeah. And then the trying to find what is it? What's her name? Julia Roberts? No, the girl in The Blind Side.
Oh, Sandra Bullock.
Trying to be Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side.
Yeah,
and he's doing a Venn diagram of Malcolm X. And I can't remember who else it was. He's trying
I was hoping you remember the other one because
it's a musical comedian, Weird Al.
Malcolm X and Weird Al is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He's trying to find that perfect. So like that song has a lot going on, but it also gets really serious because like another line that just sticks in my head constantly, like over and over and over and over again. He's talking about like, is comedy really something that can help? And he has a line, if you wake up in a house that's full of smoke, don't worry, just call me and I'll tell you a joke. If you see white men wearing white robes, don't panic, just call me and I'll tell you a joke. And those are some big, I mean, a house burning up is serious. And then obviously that's a reference to the Ku Klux Klan, which is very fucking serious and relevant in 2020/2021.
I thought in the last song, didn't he paint himself? Then he switched viewpoints where he's the person saying, if I was in a burning house, will you call me and tell me a joke?
Yeah. And then if I'm broke and irrelevant, call me up and tell me a joke.
Yeah.
That ending song, not to cut ahead, but the way it tied everything together still blows my mind. Like,
that's
go ahead.
I think he was a theater guy, and that's very musical-esque. That's
very
what musicals
much so.
do.
Mm-hmm.
He had lines from a bunch of different songs in there at the end, but that's
I like
it.
And melodies and
Well, and that's another thing I noticed watching through is all the way through, it almost has like a score that like the same melodies play through when it's, different songs, there's that same theme that goes through. And actually, speaking of themes, we've touched on a few of them. I think there's a lot of themes running through this special. I think the most obvious one, and one that he's referenced a lot, we can talk about a little later as well, but the theme that this is very much him expressing his relationship with the audience is, I think, the first layer. But I think as you go through and dissect this further and further in very traditional Bo faction, you get those onion peels coming off where it's just like, okay, because he has talked openly about his frustration with the dichotomy of how he feels about his fans and how his fans essentially make him feel negatively, even though, he appreciates the support, but it's also possibly killing him, which is, not great.
No, it's not what you want.
Not the best. Because if we learned anything from this special, it's that we shouldn't be dead forever yet, right?
That was another part where, like, when he was talking about that part, was like he wished if he could just die for a year. Like, oh my gosh, like. And then I found myself thinking, like, yeah, what the hell? Like all these problems and worries that I have right now, like a year from now, no, they're probably going to be worse. But like, I just listening to him talk about that, and that's already after he referenced earlier in the special about killing himself like that. And like, he's kind of like angry while he's talking about it too. And I was just like, man, makes you feel a little 100%.
That might be my favorite moment in the entire special, honestly, as dark as it is. It was relatable, frankly. But we'll get there. And I want to back up because you just said that's like after he already talked about the first reference to suicide, which I marked these as we go down. Throughout the special, he has two running references going along as well. References to killing himself, very dark, but also references to a dissociative disorder that he more specifically identifies in the Funny Feeling song that we'll get to. But they come up early, and right here after that opening song of Heal the World with Comedy, we get our first face-to-face moment with Bo, where he straight up tells the camera that he's doing this because it's a distraction to keep him from putting a bullet in his head with a gun. Like, that's line for line his quote. He also explains at this point how this process is going to work and that it's going to be a special, but not with an audience and not with a crew. And it's not going to be shot in one night. It's going to be shot in however long it takes him to shoot it, which we're going to see even that becomes a running struggle throughout the recording of this thing.
And I think it's very interesting because you cut immediately from that to the FaceTime with my mom, which felt very out of place in the special for me.
And he did that edit where he even he made like a joke about it, going back to your segue point, where he's like, I'm already feeling like this special is a little awkward, so don't expect smooth and like on the word transitions, it cuts to FaceTime with my mom. Yeah,
which is just almost a sore thumb of a song. Like it's not a bad song. Like it's kind of catchy, I guess, but it's not particularly funny.
Yeah.
And it's not particularly insightful. Like it just feels like a filler.
I actually have it listed as my least favorite part of the program.
Agree.
Not that it's bad. Not that it's bad. It's just less good than the rest of it.
Let me argue the other side here, because
go for it.
This is a pandemic special in my mind. That's what the whole
is that a strain of weed or
exactly. But like that's something a lot of us talked about when, especially a year ago, when everyone was getting on Zoom and using all this technology that no one's up to date with. And like every time somebody talked about talking with their grandparents or their parents, he went through everything that happens with the camera being up
the 6 inches
and
from your face and covering up the camera.
And even as he's going along through the song, at first he's just kind of like, no, it's okay. And by the end, he's like, ah. So this
is a moment where you see a lot of anger coming out, which is a little almost out of place too in that regard.
But yeah, I thought maybe it was a small blip of or maybe like I guess you could go super deep route, and it's a small metaphor for like how his whole year is about to go, basically. So I don't know.
That's fair.
I can see it fitting in the grand scheme of things for something that seems pointless and almost idiotic at the beginning, just because it's about a song about FaceTiming with your mom. But
yeah,
hell, if I can make sense out of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I should be able to make sense out of Bo Burnham.
I put on this honestly catchy but unrelatable to me. I don't really FaceTime with anybody, frankly. I find that app just to be really obnoxious.
Yeah,
and I don't really talk to my mom, so it's really just not a thing for me. But I did note that there is still more of Bo kind of flashing a little bit and his editing skills. I mean, this is a well-produced song, despite the fact that, again, it's not my favorite of the bunch. It still really shows off that Bo has got some really ridiculously, like, big or talent in the editing department, is what I'm trying to say.
That's true. That's definitely true. And we may come to it later, but then that brings up the point of the blip that comes up at that one point. And was it a mistake or was it intentional?
Yeah, that's something that I caught the very first time we watched it, and then we like tried to find it the next time and couldn't, and then somebody on TikTok validated me. But there is actually a moment early on in one of these sequences where Bo is kind of it just seems like he's on autopilot, like arranging stuff. And basically there's a small blip in the corner, like Fight Club style, where they edit like one scene into it. And it's of him doing the live stream thing. Like where he's sitting in the corner playing the game inside. And it's truly like, so my theory is that this is actually a subtle reference to that dissociative identity disorder that he's talking about. Not DID, sorry, that's the wrong one. Just a derealization disorder is what I think he's referring to. And I think that's just kind of his first showing to us as the audience of he doesn't always feel like he's really in control of his life. Sometimes he feels like he's playing it from the third party perspective. Now, I could be wrong on that, and it could literally just be a mistake. The guy was doing a one-man show. Maybe it was literally just an editing error, but it seems just like he has such a fine comb precision that it seems unlikely to me that he made a mistake, and more likely to me that was an intentional like forecast of what's to come. Welcome back.
I definitely think that it was intentional, because just everything that he did in this special was intentional. So, and I'm sure he had other people watch it before he gave it to Netflix. So like, and if everyone's catching it that easily, I mean, it could have just been some nonsensical thing about how he's not in control and he's on autopilot, and it feels like somebody else is guiding him to do that. Like, it's just a quick thing where he's doing the same thing he's always done and press X to open door kind of crap going on here.
Well, which I really enjoyed. I don't think that's going to work, but I guess I'll try it. Yeah,
I really enjoyed that moment too.
Yeah, I enjoyed. Yeah, that was really, and everything in this, regardless if it's your favorite part or your least favorite part of your special, every single thing on this is just like well done. Like that gaming, that live streaming portion, it feels like you're watching somebody play arguably the worst video game ever, but still a video game.
Yeah. It's something also that's kind of blown up and been a lot more important here in the last year than it ever has before.
For sure.
Like everything he's knocking on, it's stuff that's recently relevant too. So
And also, just gonna say that section right there, 100% reminds me of Dan Danzy. Shout out to our boy Dan Danzy, because that is his live stream. If you could get a copy of Inside, it would look the exact same as the special. But we do cut from that kind of what I think the low point, the FaceTime with my mom, to what I think is our first old school Bo song, like that. It's the How the World Works, where he's talking with his puppet, and that to me feels a lot more like younger Bo, YouTube Bo, or maybe like even like Make Happy or What Bo, but like just pre this last psychotic break that he had, Bo. It's a lot more chipper of a song at first. Of course, like in, again, Bo fashion, we get a little bit of a twist on that later. But yeah, I definitely felt like this was like, oh, this is familiar. This is the Bo I know and love from before.
Well, and he's also still showing off his editing skills too, with the puppet talking. And I at first he had his mouth covered for a split second. And I thought, is he actually doing this while he's talking? And I was like, oh yeah, nope, he can edit this. That's he's just doing a good job of editing. And
I mean, that's good puppeteering too. I mean, he does solid on it. It's a simple puppet, but it's still yet another skill that he brings to this special.
And he has the whole part where he like pulls it off and smothers it, and it like the voice and it like,
oh my god,
which, again,
that's so
very villainous,
dark.
Very villainous.
Hey, buddy, you remember who's on whose hand here?
That's after the puppet was making a lot of damn good points.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, that line where the puppet's like, you know, usually I'm just in like a hybrid state of stasis while I'm lying on your floor or whatever. It's just like, oh my god, sock, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah.
How many socks can I wear on my body at once?
I think it's another theme that is throughout the special and throughout, I think, a lot of Bo's work is here is a mentioning of a way I or a metaphorical white man could do better. Nah. And it's a running joke. Like, it's not like it's his like, oh, here's this shining example of a good thing to do would be because I'm a performer, like kind of deal.
That touches on something that you said to me privately that I thought was a really good point. And that was
not privately anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No, you had mentioned like when we were just talking about Bo before we even got the chance to watch the new special, we were talking about Bo before, and you said that Bo is a great example of somebody who does, I want to say you said problematic comedy, or maybe offensive or edgy comedy. Controversial comedy very well.
Yes. And it's not that it's not controversial, it's that it takes the reins in the right way, and like I think it is very self-aware, very calculated controversial comedy versus just like, I'm saying it'll get a reaction, like kind of deal. Not that I'm calling anyone. Anyways.
That's not a direct reference to anything specific in comedy that's happening right now. No,
not at all.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the song. It was catchy, it was funny, and it had a message that I 100% agree with. And this kind of gets into another running theme of the special, that it's really frustrating to me that Bo has taken so many of the things that I get so angry and worked up about and want to talk about in a productive and funny way, and he just fucking slayed it. Like, I might as well just quit because I don't see how anyone ever tops it.
Exactly.
Really frustrating. I'll be honest.
It really is.
I'm gonna have to go. Go ahead.
I thought the puppet at one point said, "Shut the fuck up and fall in line" or something. So maybe you should just listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. And we do go from this kind of revealing portion where Bo is like basically telling us through hand puppets that he's going to talk about some very real shit tonight. Like he's not just going to be singing little silly songs on his piano. He'll do that too, but he's going to talk about some real important things. And then we immediately shift to another big message that he's trying to get across, starting here and especially going on to the internet song that we'll get to. But this is where we see Bo Burnham presenting Inside as a brand, not a comedy special. And really what he's talking about is how on the surface of this, he's talking about how nowadays it really doesn't matter what a company sells so much, or, you know, how they price or what their quantity is. Really, companies are all just trying to use their social media influence to get us to agree with them on some sort of moral or philosophical level, so that, as he points out, like, now we'll buy bagel bites because we love the rainforest or whatever. Like, they're trying to like associate themselves with all these causes. And I think it's appropriate that it comes out right now. It came out technically in May, but right before June. And I know that there's a bunch of stuff with Pride Month, where, I mean, first of all, happy Pride Month. Like, love all of y'all. But
these are my best actual finger guns if you're not queer coding.
But it's so exploitative how many companies just, you know, basically autofill their logo to be the rainbow, but then do not do anything in any manner to make a positive change on the LGBT community.
I love there's like a graphic of it's Bethesda, I think, and it's all of their logos except the one for the Middle East. Like, why didn't you do that one?
That's funny.
I actually really enjoyed that part because it's, you know, I heard, you know, 10, 15 years ago, somebody talking about advertisement and how companies advertise to customers. And they're like, if you look, they don't really advertise the product. They advertise the way the product makes you feel, or the setting in which you could feel if you had the product just in the background somewhere. And you're right. You're not selling items. You're just selling, hey, we agree with everything that the mass majority of people agree with, so you should buy our product because we're safe, basically.
Because we're safe and you're not going to get canceled for using us. And yeah.
Well, and it's an overused term at this point, but we as like just a general society are sheep, and nothing proves that more than the brand Supreme, which just literally puts a red coloring and a white logo that says Supreme on anything, and then marks it up like 10,000%. And it's just like, you can get a Supreme Coke machine. It's just a brand that's just gotten out of hand. But again, this was a very funny, but even more than being funny, it was just very real. Very real and very, again, relatable, because we've all experienced this. And back to the Pride, though, because I have to say, I just saw one. I might have sent it to Richie. I don't remember, but it was like Umbrella from the Resident Evil games, and a bunch of like evil corporations from video games, and they gave them all the rainbow flag treatment. Fucking hilarious.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. That's good.
If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'll post that if I find it. Yeah.
My favorite thing along that line is a recent meme I saw with Lord of the Rings, where they're asking who would take the ring, and Frodo says he'll take it, and his companions are like, well, you have my thoughts and you have my prayers.
Yes. That's good.
And actually,
you have my new profile picture. That was the last
one. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is actually referenced in the next song, and in one of my favorite just individual jokes anywhere in the special. But the next song we cut to is actually White Woman's Instagram, which I'm going to say this I can understand why, if it is your favorite song on the special. It's not mine. I think it's great, but the song itself I don't think is as good as the visual component that he puts into this, because this is so freaking real.
Yeah,
the
production made it funny.
Yeah, that's the visual element to this just takes it up. Like, the song is funny, it's fine, it's catchy, it's enjoyable, but when you add that visual element to it, it just kicks it up like an entire notch. It's crazy.
Oh, 100%. And we mentioned this at the time, but like, I want to see what his Amazon purchase list during this time. Like,
I had that noted on here is actually, this is my first hashtag deep thought for tonight. Shout out to Bo's second special there. Yeah, did he order all of this stuff on Amazon while Simon, like, to produce a special that has not one but two songs like denouncing Jeffrey Bezos?
Yes,
but there's no way he got all that stuff without Amazon during a pandemic.
Yeah,
he can't go to the store and get it elsewhere. I mean, I guess if you've got Bo Burnham money, maybe you can order everything. But like,
the special just got released, so he could have gotten those items.
Yeah,
and still survived before
I'm thinking there's at least once where he's like, "Shit, I don't have enough cardboard raindrops for this shot. I better get them Prime shipped to me or whatever." You know,
I enjoyed the song. Again, I still think maybe the Internet Salesman song might be my favorite, just because
I think that one's my favorite
too.
But
I enjoyed the song so much because I will say right now, I rarely use Instagram. My girlfriend uses it a lot. I had to get a little more involved, but like every time I get on Instagram, he just like read my mind. I see the same stuff all the time. I can't tell anything apart, and I thought I was just getting old, but maybe it's just because we're already stuck in this loop where that's all everybody does. Is everything he describes in the first few like stanzas of the song just had me hysterically laughing, and then the effect where he had the pumpkins on his skin, like I could not stop laughing at that part.
I actually, one of the simpler shots is one of my favorites. It's the one where he's wearing like a Wine Time shirt or Wine 30 shirt or whatever, some like very basic wine shirt, and he's doing this like big gaping open mouth laugh in like slow motion, and I don't know, it just cracks me up.
But then I also think I think that Bo kind of does this thing where sometimes he what's the right way to put this? A lot of people, so there's been discussion on TikTok like, oh, is that song misogynistic? Is he making fun of white women? I don't really think he is, like, because there is that very sentimental part there that at the end where it's like a memorial post to her mom that she does out loud. And so I think he is in some ways, like, by putting so much thought into each shot, I think in some ways it is like an appreciation of it doesn't seem like a condemnation of the white woman's
He's
Instagram.
saying it's compared to heaven. I mean, he's saying a white woman's Instagram is like the better than Earth, essentially.
Yeah. I don't think it's like, that's like, and so I don't like when I see people talking about it being like misogynistic or feel like they're being made fun of. Like, I really don't think it is. Like, I think if anything, he's maybe calling out people who make fun of white women. I don't know.
I just feel like that you majorly see that on Instagram more than anything else. Like if you're searching through Instagram, that's just the most common thing that you see.
For sure. Yeah. And again, it's almost like he's so accurate that it can't be offensive. I know that's not a hard rule across the board, but like when you put that, like to your point, when you put that much level of effort into it.
It wasn't a caricature of women's Instagrams. It just was women's Instagrams. Yeah.
And I mean, he dressed more effeminate. He posed more effeminately. He had the shoulder uncovered. There's a lot to love in that.
He looks like two totally different people between white women's Instagram and Problematic. Like that looks like different bodies, like entirely different bodies.
Facial hair structure, and all of it. Yeah. The line that I want to make sure we do talk about is the funniest to me in the song is he says a quote from an inspirational quote from Lord of the Rings, falsely attributed to Martin Luther King. And like, God damn it, that kills me.
Do what you do with the time you're given.
There is also, we talk a lot about those lingering shots in between that give you that sense of dread sometimes. It's almost sometimes where he cuts off your laughter. It's like you're having a good time, and he's like, oh, but this is the misery that I had to go through to get this to you. And right after this shot, there's an awkwardly long hold of him just sitting in like a blouse or one of the various costumes that he had clearly used for the production of the song. And he's just kind of sitting there, and he almost looks like he's like shell shocked. Like he's just like mentally fried, and he's just sitting there slumped in this chair. And that's one of those moments where like, this is actually, Ruth and I had to back this up in our second watch through, because we're like, what does this shot mean? Why it lingers way too long to be irrelevant. And I think that in subsequent viewings, it just is one of those times that he's showing you like, hey, I hope you're enjoying this because it's literally killing me.
Was that the time where like he sat there holding the mic where he was like kind of smiling the whole time for a long pause?
No, this one was way more subtle.
That's a different disconcerting shot.
Okay. That one was the one that was really off-putting to me, where it just kept going and going.
This one was more subtle, and it was literally so far in the background that I had to get up off the couch and go like peer into the screen to like see like what was happening. And it was just him again being very, very depressed.
Yeah, just not having a good time.
But again, do you guys? Because again, he meant everything that he put forth on this. So is he acting? Is it a combination of both, do you think? Is it, I had to blow up in this and maybe I should catch something like that on camera, so I'm going to just torture myself until some of this comes through on the camera? And like even the part where he pulled his viewing thing too far and the camera fell and he goes, oh shit, and he catches the camera, like I was like, man, did he do that on purpose? I don't know. Like,
and he's a good actor. That's the problem. Like,
yeah.
you've seen him in other things, and he is a very talented actor as well as a comedian. Absolutely. And yeah, it's kind of like this weird dichotomy happening through the entire special where he's basically telling you everything I'm telling you is so raw and real, but then at the same time showing you, except that I'm producing the shit out of it.
Except this is a production. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. There's no way to know, I don't think, until he comes out and tells us. Or if he ever does. There's no way to know he ever will. Like, he could go underground for the next 5 years again and we don't hear from him.
Which would make you think it was real.
Yeah, but I really think it's more acting than not.
See, that's the decision I came with too.
I kind of am also leaning that direction as well.
Some of it just seemed too perfect.
All right, podcast over. Good talk, everybody.
Yeah. Cool.
Some of it just
fixed Bo Burnham inside.
Yep.
Some of it seemed too well staged.
Yeah,
and
I think that
perfectly not perfect.
Of it. Yeah. No, you're right.
Indeed. So we go from, again, a very produced segment to the first time in the special that's listed on Netflix as a stand-up special. This is the first moment of anything that resembles stand-up, and he has a stool and a mic stand, and he's sitting there and he's ranting much like a stand-up comedian would. But again, this is all very produced, and I do have to say I love this joke, but it goes on for a long time, and he basically just repeats in various ways. Can any one single person shut the fuck up about any one single thing? And this is when we really start to see just how he has this anger towards the internet, which is the thing that made him, but also the thing that breaks him. And you can see that this is the first time he's kind of calling out, like, hey, the whole internet thing maybe isn't like the great solution to life that we all thought we had, that we all thought it was. And he will go on to more specifically like add to that and call that out here as we go along.
Yes, I agree. And it's also another example of those things of like, can any one person shut the fuck up? And I'm going to do this for a whole minute and not shut the fuck up during that.
And even ends on the line, and he's like, I know what you're thinking. You're not shutting the fuck up right now. And to that I say, and he never answers the question. He cuts himself off, and he never actually responds to that criticism. It just moves on to the next section.
He does earlier on in one of his like much earlier specials where he's like, you know, like, I know what you're thinking. Like, if you're really like of the people, couldn't you spend some of this money to go back and reinvest in your community? And to that I say, oh shit, the chorus is coming up. So it's very Bo. It's very, very Bo.
Indeed. We kind of changed gears a little bit in the net because so far we've been doing mostly songs. We did a little bit of stand-up here. And this next cut we get to, we start with a song. So it does go into kind of what we expect. We get the Unpaid Intern song, which is short, sweet, really fun, catchy tune. It's got kind of a jazzy jingle style to it a little bit. He even does, I can't remember what it's called, where you're almost like making like noises a little bit, like with your, it's like really popular in like New Orleans and things of that nature.
Scatting.
But scatting. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. But the whole concept is about how fucked up it is that these billion-dollar corporations essentially are having unpaid labor that are in these horrible positions because they're trying to get their foot in the door at these companies that have, again, billions of dollars. It's a brilliant song, but it cuts real fucking quick. And that's part of the bit because this is where we get Bo once again kind of emulating something that's become a very popular part of internet culture, and that is reaction videos. Only, of course, Bo Burnham style, this reaction video has a twist. It like keeps looping, so he's not only reacting to his song, he's reacting to his reaction of his song, then his reaction of his reaction to his song, then further his reaction to his reaction to his reaction to his song until he finally just gets fed up. And this bit to me was very, very like it really. Richie kind of commented on it earlier, but like editing and watching yourself back on things like this is the worst. It is the absolute worst. I love performing. I hate watching myself back on camera. I hate it. It is the absolute most awful thing. And like the more you do it, the more you start like self-analyzing. And this is where you got into things like he's like, well, I'm trying to like, talk about something here and I'm really coming off as very pretentious. And it comes back along. He's like, I'm talking about how I'm coming off as pretentious and this is making me look even more pretentious. And I know that. And talking like it's very meta and very interesting to the fact that we as a society now, so many of us watch ourselves do things.
But by the end, like by the last time he was watching himself, I think he'd had enough at that point where he's even like, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about right here. It was just fucking stupid. I think he had said something almost exactly like that by the time he was in. So again, we have another situation where it starts down one path and we see the slow progression into madness, basically. Uh-huh. So, I mean, I feel like that was a very prevalent theme throughout this whole special was him slowly going crazy the whole time. But that's what happens when you're locked inside for over 365 days. Inside, and possibly inside your own brain too, which I love the title, by the way.
It has a lot of great, again, kind of hidden meanings that we're definitely going to get to. But yeah, it means more than just what we think it does on the surface level.
Yes.
We already brought it up a little bit, but we go to our very first Jeffrey Bezos song here, where he talks about Jeffrey Bezos being an entrepreneurial tycoon. It literally goes as far as to talk about other like very wealthy people, but how he should basically drink their blood and fuck their wives.
Drink their wives?
Yeah, drink their wives and fuck their blood. Yeah, whatever Jeffrey Bezos does while hanging upside down like a bat creature of some sort. He ends this in the most relatable way, in my opinion. Something that I've definitely felt just thinking about these larger issues, because he's talked about multiple times already at this point, but the like disparity of wealth in our country is just maddening. I mean, like that alone causes so many, like the divide of wealth causes so many of the other problems that we have. And there are times when me personally, I'm thinking of these like big world issues, and it's like, it's not like other people don't know this is happening. So it's literally just people know it's happening, but they're not doing anything about it. And he ends with like this intense piano and he just screams. I mean, like the most intense, like just like my brain is overwhelmed, I can't take it anymore scream. And it was very quick, but like that connected with me. I've screamed like that before. I know I have.
Mm-hmm. It also really, at least in the first part especially, had the vibe of like, you did it, you won capitalism, can we give you a trophy and you'll stop now? If I sing this song about you're so powerful, you did it, like, will you stop? Like, that's the vibe it had for me.
I think that he literally, those are like lyrics from the second Bezos song. He's like, you did it. Yeah. Yeah. But like literally, I love that joke. I wish I would have thought of it, but like the whole, like it's been a meme now at this point, but it like in capitalism, if you get to $1 billion, they should just cut you off from payment, but you get like a trophy that says you won capitalism.
You
like,
did it.
Yeah, you did it. Like, I think that's a great system. And then the rest can go like, keep people from dying in the streets or something else important, I guess. I don't know. The cut here, again, we've talked about the segues already a lot, but this is another one that's very jarring, and it's intentionally so. We cut from him screaming intensely to him lying in, again, a very depressed manner. His pillow is on his floor in a mess of wires that's absolutely staged. But his head is next to a pillow, and with his eyes closed and a almost like muffled voice, he basically just goes on a rant talking
about how he's horny. Oh wait,
I mean, eventually, yes, but that's kind of a funny comment. That I think there's a funny comment there too, a subtle joke there. But before he gets to the "I'm horny" part, he goes on about how essentially maybe like putting our entire life into the internet permanently, forever, and for here on out, it would seem like maybe that wasn't a good idea, and that's kind of the concept of this 30-second pillow talk rant. Before he kind of just like is almost flabbergasted and then takes a deep breath and just says, "I'm horny." And we cut from that to the sexting song, which is another very well produced, very catchy song, but one to me that in a roundabout manner reminds me, this is going to sound weird, but it reminds me of the FaceTime with my mom, but just in that it almost doesn't feel like it has the same message as the other ones do.
It almost feels as empty as sexting feels.
Maybe, yeah, honestly, that's a great analysis on that regard. And I definitely think there's something to that where he goes from like this rant to "I'm horny" to, with the modern internet world we live in, your buttons push away from that. It's not like, back in the day where you'd at least have to go to the corner store and buy a Playboy. Like, it's just like it's already in your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no ritual to it anymore. You just,
Yeah. Again, production value on this one was just incredible. I love the way he would switch like the scrolling emojis that were going across. And there is a line in here that just absolutely cracked me up. It's where he's going through like the conversation. She's like, "What are you wearing?" "Nothing but a top hat." She says LMAO, but I doubt that. That's so true. No, everybody always says that, like LOL or LMAO, and it's just like, really? And I think that's somewhat of a callback to "Make Happy" at the very end, where he's singing the "I Hope You Can Be Happy" song at the end of that special. He basically says, "I hope that I made you laugh, or if you were watching alone, you probably didn't laugh, but I hope you made you breathe out your nose extra hard a couple of times." And it's just like, that's so brilliant, because that is what we do. That's like true. If we're in a group setting, laughter is contagious, but if we're in our heads by ourselves, a lot of times we react internally and not externally.
I agree.
Just really like that sequence. We go from that kind of another just uncomfortable scene, second reference to suicide here. It's Bo talking to us directly, telling us how much he hopes we're enjoying ourselves, but doing so while just kind of haphazardly waving a knife and even pointing it directly into the camera. And then very uncomfortable. Again, that's the joke. It's like that's the Simpsons meme, like that's the joke. But like it's left very uncomfortable, him just kind of staring into the camera holding the knife, and even starts to tremble a little bit as if he's like thinking of possibly doing something with said camera. And he doesn't directly talk about suicide in this sequence, but it's very obvious that that's what is happening in my mind.
Man, at least to me, I had a different reaction to that scene. It felt very, Bo's always making comments on stuff and all that kind of deal. With how much he was gesticulating with it, it really felt he was making a comment on like what's actually holding your attention, And I think it has to do with sometimes, or at least the way I interpreted it, it's because he's thanking you for watching his content is what he's saying while he's
That's
doing
right,
it.
yeah.
It's like, but it's like, how genuinely is that engagement? If it's engagement out of fear, I guess, or if it's engagement out of like, you're watching because of this, because at least in that thing, all I can do is keep my eyes on that knife.
You're just watching the pointy,
and so I
shiny
am
thing.
watching that content very closely, but it's out of fear or out of
uncomfort
reasons
or discomfort.
Yeah. So it's like, how genuine is that engagement if it's under duress in some way? Which I don't know exactly what to make of that, but I wasn't as scared for Bo in that scene as I was for like whoever was on the other side of that camera, which I know is no one. But that was my read.
It's honestly, that's a perfect description of it, because that's how I felt too. I felt like it was more directed towards the camera and everything, but maybe you're watching for the wrong reasons there. So that could be the whole point behind it. But
interesting. So more of a homicide than suicide reference in that one. Maybe both.
It's gonna take all of us.
Which that was definitely one of the very villainous scenes because again, the whole thing feels very villainous. That felt very villainous again.
Yeah, this is like his heel turn, if you will.
Yeah.
We go from that knife scene to one of these awkward cut and what I think is like an editor's joke to some extent, because we go to the song Funny and Stuck in a Room, which is personally another very relatable song. Richie and I were both only children. I don't know if that related to you, Richie, but like when he talks about like being a kid and stuck in your room and having nobody to talk to but yourself, like you do weird shit to entertain yourself. I mean, that's just, you do. You sing and you make funny voices and you make your action figures come to life, and you find ways to entertain yourself. But before he actually got into the song, he cut himself off by like halfway through the song. He's like, nope, got to redo it because I took a huge fucking breath. And then he leaves that part in the song, does the entire song, and then at the end is still like, nope, still not good enough. I need to do another take.
One more time.
The point you made about and stuck in the room and stuff, I didn't have that experience. And I think it's because I grew up with the inner difference between
yeah, that's right.
I didn't have that. I would just go online. Like I would just be online at that point. Like there was no like need to entertain myself, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know.
were in a world where boredom was a crime.
I don't know what you're even talking about. I don't know what Bo was talking about in this. I mean, when my action figures talked to me, it was because they were talking to me.
It was like a small soldier situation.
Yeah, exactly. No, I hope it was more of a Toy Story situation.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Small soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the breath thing with the editing, he literally chose to make an edit of this film where he put in an edit because of a breath to show him getting upset with himself about the littlest of things. A breath that, by the way, listening multiple times, I never heard. I was trying to hear his big fucking breath. I never picked up on it, but when editing, I know from our podcast, I am hypercritical in listening to like everything. And also sometimes you even see it visually and like it drives you crazy. But I just thought it was interesting how he chose to leave so much of that in the final film.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you'll go back and hear that table slap you just did right there, you're going to be like, man, I wish one more time.
Yeah, well, can you guys come back next week? We're just going to redo this whole thing because of that table slap. One more time. I do believe there's a sequence here. No, actually, I think it's after the next one. Excuse me. But we go to the shot here where
I'm so sorry. I have one more.
No, please.
I have one more bit I want to talk about in that last scene.
Absolutely.
It's the room one. It's the line, well, look who's to look for a reason to hide again. And I think there's so many, and it doesn't even apply, but just like I feel even romantically sometimes when I'll like go after someone and then get hurt and I'm like, oh well, I'm just gonna be single for 2 more years now. It's like it's almost like you were just looking for a reason to isolate yourself again. You weren't even looking for an opportunity.
You didn't want a boyfriend, you wanted an excuse not to have one.
Exactly. Like I just wanted a justification to shut myself in my room again. And it's almost like maybe Bo feels like, he went out looking to do stand-up again. And really, he just wanted to look for like a justification to stay back inside, which he found the best justifications to stay back.
It was almost handed to him on a like platter. Yeah,
on a
shoot
for sure.
I do that kind of stuff all the time where I'm like, I don't want to go out. Okay, I'll go out. And as soon as I get out, I'm like, oh my gosh, give me a reason to go back right now.
yes.
Give me a reason I want to go back home right now.
Whose idea was it to go out? That was stupid.
Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that also reminds me that the closing line of this song is actually the closing line of the entire special, which he talks about how he has to come out with his hands up because he's surrounded. And I have a couple of theories on what that actually means. I think maybe that's how he feels, again, on the surface level about his relationship with his fans, is he's like handcuffed now that like he's demanded to be part of the entertainment spectrum.
Mm-hmm. But then also going back to the villainy thing, like that's crime, like coding. Like, I mean, that's the language of crime that he was using is like,
of course.
So I think there's a lot in this special. And I think that's another example of it.
for sure.
Which guilt over what? I don't totally know. I don't know if we're supposed
and
to
that
know.
that could be with the undertones, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of them that come up throughout for sure. And problematic, the entire song.
Was that the song at this point? Was that the song where he at one point had the lighting where he had 3 shadows of himself behind him on the wall?
I want to say that's I'm turning 30.
Turning 30.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Which we're coming up on pretty quickly, but there is a really important scene. It's maybe 10, 15 seconds, and there's no dialogue and no music. It's current Bo, sitting in his chair, looking dreadful, angry almost, maybe bitter. And he's watching on his projector the YouTube video that caused him to go viral when he was 14 years old.
Is that the YouTube video? Because I've never seen that video of him before.
That I went back and watched a bunch of his stuff. That was like his big breakout video.
But that plays into what Ruth's been talking about the whole time. Like, especially if he's looking at it dreadfully, like the whole villainous thing where he's looking at his origin and what started it all and it caused. Yeah, exactly. So that plays into everything that you've been saying so far, Ruth.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And on that note too, I find that shot to be like haunting. Mm-hmm. And obviously Bo has a different experience, because I think Bo feels that moment is largely responsible for the way he currently feels because of the results of that video. But I related with that for a different reason, just in that I pretty much constantly feel like I hate myself from 5 years ago. Like I hate the person that I used to be, like constantly. And hopefully that's because I'm like growing as a human or whatever, and not, just like awful mental health disorder of some sort. But like, I do believe that is like what we're supposed to do as humans. Mm-hmm. But like that felt gut wrenching to me, the way that he's just staring at himself. Because it made me feel the same way I feel when I just think back about like some of the shitty things I've done that were perfectly lawful, just not very thoughtful, that we'll definitely talk about, at some point. But that shot, man, his use of the camera, it's powerful.
And like you said, it's the sounds that you would hear like in a horror movie too. It's that kind of like
big time. And I mean, that's an old school practical effect in horror films. There are tones that we as humans hear them, and it causes parts of our brains to have responses, like even things like flight. You can trigger the flight or flight response by playing certain tones that we as humans it gives us that heebie-jeebie, our skin's crawling notion, and that's why music can be so powerful, and is absolutely a big part of Bo's show.
Faux show.
The Bo for Show, which is one of his songs.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that right there does immediately cut into the Problematic song, which is another just incredible. Like this is like an 80s like workout video vibe to it. Mm-hmm. Like Flashdance or what's the one, Dirty Dancing. Like it has like that edgy, he's literally sweating bullets. I mean, like you can tell that in this shot, he literally like worked out to the point that he was profusely sweating. And I even imagine he went as far as to probably like turn the heat up in his apartment or whatever it was, just so that it looked uncomfortably high. It looked like watching a hot yoga session. Like it was like just nasty amounts of sweat. And these lyrics right here, another one that just were very relatable. The specifically to our podcast, actually, because this right here reminds me of a big issue that's currently and being resolved, but definitely has been a cause of a lot of frustration and hurt and just lots of uncomfortable conversations for Simpsons fans, because the character of Apu, if you're not familiar, Ruth, as voiced by a white actor. And that was something that back in 1989, when the show started, wasn't even thought of as, it was never even considered to be problematic, if you will. But at this point, through conversations with fans of The Simpsons and certain things that have happened, there's been a lot of overhaul of the voice acting of The Simpsons, and different voice actors have handled the response to that in different ways with different amount of criticisms. But the idea that something, is problematic and it can change as quickly as the first verse to the second verse in the case of this song. It's like, hey, the things that I'm just singing about, I've had a lot of time to reflect on them and I've changed my mind and now I see they're problematic. Like, that's a really well thought out concept for the cancel culture world that we live in. And I don't really believe in cancel culture for what it's worth, but I know that's something that is relatable to most people. I think it's more of a consequence culture, but whatever. That's maybe semantics, maybe another conversation for another time. But even with the Apu thing, he literally goes into the concept of dressing as Aladdin. And the fact that he didn't darken his skin, but still it feels weird in hindsight type of things. Those types of things that we would joke about. This is where we get the line, I've done my closet is chock full of things that are shitty. None of them are unlawful, just not very thoughtful and just really shitty. And that is another thing that reflected on me, where it's like, man, I kind of have been a douche at times in my life. I probably could have been a better person there.
Yeah. I was trying to find the exact line, but yeah, that's another thing. Like, because the closet, he means the costume and stuff, but also you talk about skeletons in your closet. I think he just means like his past is full of actions that were perfectly lawful, but not very thoughtful and just generally shitty. And it, it is comforting that he says they're all perfectly lawful. But it still makes you wonder,
Yeah, some of these states have really loose laws, frankly. So
it doesn't even talk about in that song at one point, like, should I burn it all away? No.
Wait, no, you can't burn it. What should I do with it?
I can't burn it. Burning is bad. Actually funny to me because I was in like that exact situation where like
yeah.
not that exact situation.
No, I know what you're about to talk about. Yeah.
Do you? Have we talked about this?
You've told me this story, but please share it with our podcast.
Oh, okay.
The Problematic Sorority.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say the exact stuff, but like there was just something in my sorority that was like not great from like long time ago, and it got willed to me, and then there was just lots of discussion on what happened to it. And at one point, one of the things I was like, "I'll burn it," and I was like, "Oh no, maybe burning it isn't the thing." Like I don't like just tell me what to do. Like I'll do whatever the thing is. But nobody would tell me what the thing to do was. They would all just tell me they were upset about it existing. And so I did kind of like...
It was a really uncomfortable year, and then you just willed it to your little?
It's your problem. No.
That's the tradition, is we just want to make one member of the sorority feel really uncomfortable. Yeah.
No,
confront your white guilt directly.
Yeah. I can't believe I've told you that story. I forgot that. But
and now you've told the world that story, and it can live on the internet forever. It's kind of the point of this special in some ways too.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
But this Problematic song is another one that is, in my opinion, if there is coding and hidden layers to the messaging, this is one of those songs.
And I have to wonder. I have my own theories, but like. He tries to make himself look very physically attractive during this song. Like, it's not just him working out. Like, he is highlighting his muscles. He is making things look sexual. And then he
does like the water bottle into the belly button. He has a nipple shot.
Shirt just shows the nipple. It almost becomes a caricature of sexuality at a point. And it's like, why are you tying? I know sometimes like celebrities will use their sexuality to try and get out of being held for accountable, I guess. But like that doesn't even feel prevalent enough to be the point. I don't know what the point is, but it's definitely something I noticed.
Interesting. Yeah. That song, like I said, I think we might talk about some of those things later if we go around some of the hidden concepts in this, but we cut from this to one of those just almost out of place scenes where it just shows not anything. It's just behind the scenes. It's a setup. And this is actually where we get that cool drop shot where he like accidentally knocks over the camera and it falls into the alarm clock. And we cut to his like turning 30 bit. But before we talk about him turning 30, does anybody have any other insight onto that shot? Like, is it just to look cool? Does anybody have any theory on why that shot was in the film? Because that's one of the few that I'm just like, I think he was just like, this will look like a neat thing to do, but maybe there's something deeper.
I think it was kind of meant to be one of those moments that like, hey, this is me reminding you everything's planned. Like it's one of those moments where like this is your check-in that like nothing I do is an accident. And
entertainment is a lie, which is a common theme in some of his earlier songs too. Stuff. Yeah.
Well,
nothing is real.
This whole special to me felt like it's something that could and maybe should be performed on stage. And you know, something that's prevalent in stage is our act breaks, or like if you have, like Shakespeare did, if you have a whole bunch of drama going on, you got to have the quick moment of comedy to break the tension in the room. So maybe this is just kind of like an intermission without having an intermission. So
are you saying 3 months from now we're going to see the Inside Out tour?
There you go. Yeah. Go inside.
Honestly, talking about the intermission, we're coming quickly approaching that too, and that's a whole nother
like is that the
weird
the
thing to talk about. Yeah, we're not even there. Honestly, I told you this podcast is never ending. Just hold on to your seats.
I've been holding it inside for like 25 minutes. I'm not even joking. I might have to put myself on mute and excuse myself in a minute.
Got to do what you got to do, homie. We do get the 30 here, which this is a dark, uncomfortable conversation. This is one of those moments where Bo again is talking directly into the camera, but this one feels different because usually he does a lot of time spending it on the lighting. He makes sure that the shot is centered, or you know, that he has some sort of purpose in the shot. This one, he's sitting in a dark room, slouched on a stool with a microphone and an out of place alarm clock that's like at 11:58, I do believe. And he basically sits there and talks about how he was hoping to be done with this by the time he was 30, but that's not going to happen. So he's just going to sit here and enjoy the rest of his 20s, which is less than a minute away, and then get back to work. And then you sit there with him for about 40 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds of just uncomfortable silence where he looks like he is contemplating dark thoughts and really upset about this milestone he's about to cross over. And then the moment the alarm clock hits 12, we get the beat for his next song, which is in fact Turning 30, which is another really catchy song. I really enjoy it a lot, but I think the coolest part of this song by far is the way he has this handheld light that he hits and snaps it in the room whenever the snare hits, before using it as like this weird spotlight thing around him. And I will shout, Ruth sent me this hilarious TikTok, which was basically like the perspective of Bo Burnham's inside from his next door neighbor's house. And it was like just showing this crazy guy with like all these lights going off crazy. And like the people next door are like, what the fuck is happening? But yeah, that snapping snare light, he just has it behind his back and just like flashes it quickly. And it's a really impressive, it's almost like he's using it like a light, like a visual tambourine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At one point, I thought it was a cell phone because of how bright it was when it turned. At one point, it looked like the size of about a cell phone with the flashlight turned on from behind, but then I wasn't sure. But just a lot of really cool effects on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some pretty
stupid children.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said my stupid friends are having stupid children.
They really fucking are, Richie. I want to talk about a couple of things on this one. So first of all, this song, as far as I could tell, or as far as I noticed, this is the first reference to a dissociative disorder, because in his rant in the middle where he talks about he used to make fun of boomers, maybe a little bit too much, and now all these fucking Zoomers are making fun of him. And he goes off. He's like, "Well, you know what? Your phones are poisoning your mind, and when you develop a dissociative disorder in your late 20s, don't come crying to me." And then immediately goes back into the song. And that doesn't reference that he necessarily has that, but it does reference that spending a lot of time on the internet could potentially cause that, and we know that he very much does that. This is a dark line, but I have to say it's one that just lives in my head as well. It's one I really like, even though it is very sad. He says, it's 2020 and I'm 30. I'll do another 10. In 2030, I'll be 40 and I'll kill myself then. And that line just resonates with me heavily. Yeah, really, really interesting song. This is again, another dichotomy where the lyrics do not match the happy upbeatness of the song, which will become even more prevalent in 2 additional songs that we get to.
I have to disassociate myself from this conversation for just a moment.
Okay. I'll say we'll go ahead and talk real quick about the third suicide reference, which Richie already talked about a little bit, so we'll catch him up. But Ruth, I know this, we both, I think, had an audible or oh, wow moment, essentially, when we are processing this. This is a very direct discussion about suicide in general.
Yes.
This is where he basically tells the people directly, as he's talking into the camera, hey man, if you're thinking about killing yourself, please don't. Could you not? I think is his exact words. And when he says, could you not? We cut from him delivering the message to a depressed version of him sitting in a slump in his floor, receiving the message on his phone. It's projecting on its chest. It's such a fucking brilliant idea, just that alone.
Yes.
And then the message of that goes on. We talked again a little bit about this, but this is something that I found uncomfortably relatable, in that he's don't kill yourself because that sucks, because it lasts forever. And sure, if we could kill ourselves for a year, I'd do that immediately. And I have to say, there's definitely times in my life where if I had that option at that point, oh yeah, I'll see you in 18 months. That'll we'll see if things have improved by that time. In this case, though, again, the overall message is we shouldn't be dead forever yet.
Yes, I like that a lot. But it is one of the best, I think, visuals of, because there are times I feel both sides of that projection. There are sides when I'm the one who's do that. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Just don't.
That's not fun. We don't want that.
No.
This is a stretch, I will admit, but I do think that there's kind of a dark timeline. This is kind of the darkest timeline version of his left brain, right brain skit from his earlier sketches, where the creative one is essentially the one that's he's a slump of sadness at this point, instead of being the I like Oreos and pussy, I think is the opening line of that song. It's that same side of his brain, though, that feels that intense.
High highs.
The high highs and the low lows. And it's his rational side talking to himself saying, no, dead is forever. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot.
And what a heavy fucking way to find ourselves at intermission, which, again, to me, only exists to continue to communicate to us that this is all my show, that I'm letting you through this filter. Mm-hmm. Let me get my fingerprints off of the screen real quick.
Polish this filter, yeah. Make sure you're seeing me exactly the way I want you to see me.
I think it was him saying normally Netflix specials are 59 minutes or 1 hour and 1 minute, but this is only the halfway point of this one. So just buckle up, buckaroo.
Buckle up, buckaroo.
Sending you the message that you're not done yet. It's kind of like when you get to
this podcast.
Yeah, what are we at? This is going for a while. I told you, I knew this was going to happen, and I've honestly been looking forward to it. So, but yeah, that screen wipe again, just a very deep moment. All
I could do was go, you missed a spot there and you missed a spot there, but then he came back with the rag. I was like, thank Jesus. If you would have missed those, the OCD in my brain was
scrubbing his television. Go away. What if you just left it for the rest of the special? Just
that would have blown my mind.
Spot, just to,
that would have made me so uncomfortable.
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. We come back with what I would consider to be another kind of classic Bo moment where it's just him and his piano, which is what we're most used to seeing him do. And Ruth, I know this song in particular really connected to you. And I think from the surface level, as performers, that is something. The song is "I Don't Want to Know," and he's having a conversation with like, "Are you enjoying yourself? Wait, don't answer. I don't want to know. Are you actually watching, or are you on your phone? Wait, no, don't tell me." Like that's kind of like the surface level, and it's a beautiful song. It's not very long, but it just kind of once again is communicating like this is really more about me than it's about you.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know you already know my opinions on this song, and I will just go ahead and like come out and say it. I think Bo is great at doing like different layers of things. I think he absolutely wrote it about the performer and the relationship between the performer and the audience. I also think there are spaces, just like he explored before within that, with the consumption of that media if it is under duress. And not to that extent at all in this example, but he uses the phrase "too fast, too slow." Like, you know, are you enjoying yourself? You know, I don't want to know. I'm asking, but I don't want to know. It very much like, as you know, a woman, someone who's been on, you know, this side of things, it feels like a lot of conversations I've had with men in bed where they have that kind of compulsory check-in, like, is this good for you? Like, is this, yeah?
Have we crossed any lines? But I don't want to know.
So they can say they asked, not because they actually care. And that very much felt like the same relationship he was describing between the performer and the audience, whether he meant it to or not. That one has earwormed for me a lot because it's like, yeah, I'm asking, but I don't answer because I don't want to know. Like, I've felt that so many times.
Sure. There's some other lyrics and other songs that I will say supports that we'll come back around and kind of dive back into because we haven't even got to all of them yet.
Yes. I mean, he was just in that movie Problematic or Promising Young Woman.
Promising Young Woman, which is a very intense but very good film.
And while I haven't seen it, I also know the subject matter, and I could totally see that, like, maybe having changed his perspective on some of his past interactions, and maybe that's part of what he's exploring in a way in the special, and maybe where some of that guilt overtone comes from.
I mean, even in the going back a little bit, the Problematic song, there's a line where he says he was a privileged kid who wrote offensive shit, and that's what he would say as jokes when he first got started, because that's how a lot of us got started. Yeah. You know, basically he had the dichotomy of church and Family Guy, and he would just try to come up with the most offensive things to say that he could think of, and that would get laughs from, you know, the other kids, I would suppose. So yeah, I think there's definitely potential coding in a lot of this stuff.
I'm just sorry I laughed while you were explaining that, Ruth, because I thought when you were going too fast, too slow, you're going to be making fun of how inadequate all the men were. But you took that in a much darker route.
That's what she does with her stand-up comedy.
I'm sorry that I laughed there.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
We go from this opening song right into the live stream portion that we talked about, where we actually see he's definitely playing a character. He's playing somebody else. I don't know if it's somebody specific, but it's definitely a streamer. He's got the gaming chair. It's so well done. He talks to his subs. Oh, thanks J-Dog for the 6-month subscription. Yeah. Like, all of it is just like, damn it, this is exactly what a Twitch stream looks like. Like, again, for a second, I accidentally thought I clicked on Dan Danzy's like just Twitch for a second. I was like, oh, are we going to watch some Destiny? Oh no, we're actually watching this Bo Burnham special right now. This was brilliant. We talked about it a little bit. The blip that I mentioned came from this section, the like Fight Club edit sequence that was earlier in the film was exactly from that corner shot. But basically, Bo controls himself, walking around the room, crying, trying to unlock the door, which is good. He complains that the game is like giving him clues about stuff, which is something Richie and I have legit complained about while playing certain games. Where it's just like, yeah, I mean, it was cool, but like I felt like it thought I was stupid because like as soon as I walked in the door, it's like, oh, go grab this thing. It's like, can I walk around the room for a second? Like, calm down, game. Maybe you could put a button where if I'm stuck, you could help me. But like, you know.
No, because that door won't open. So
Yeah. But it's really funny that he accomplishes his daily goals by crying 4 times, picking up the flashlight, and playing the piano.
On day 253.
In day 253, but then he's like, "Oh, sweet, yeah, I kind of like this. It's kind of fun." I can't remember what game he compared it to, but he's like, "It's basically like this game that I can tell that it's kind of boring, but like in an
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which he did make when he was like, "Oh, he's playing the piano. He looks happier now. Oh, now he's done. Like he has
and then he immediately cries as soon as he's
again.
Done.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna cry again.
Mm-hmm.
Almost had a Sims feel to it. The way
kind of a 2D control sequence. Yeah.
Well, I think we talked about being a reference to his disassociative thing with him feeling like he's pressing X to like control.
He's watching himself and like control himself in real life. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that kind of visually is continued in the next sequence because there's actually another awkward cut where you kind of think the gameplay is still going because it's like cutting to a new day or whatever, but then it's just done with that. And there's really no purpose in this shot other than we see him make his bed, put a spotlight where his pillow goes, and goes to sleep. No dialogue.
He's always got to be on.
He's always got to be on, even when he's not. It's this persona that he shows his listeners or his viewers, his fans. Yeah, and that in its own, it's just got this uncomfortableness to it as you're watching it.
I kind of this only works in my head, and I know this is really stupid to say, but about this point in the viewing, I was like, man, this dude needs to get himself a dog.
I'm going to just go ahead and say Bo gives me cat person vibes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm saying like the happiness of
I get you.
He's right here next to me. Yeah, you're the sweetest person on earth, even you're not a person.
Hey, dogs are people, man. It's cool. We go from this very dark, just kind of melancholy moment to an upbeat like club vibe of a song. And I will go ahead and just for the record say this next jam is what I wake up to now every morning and probably will for the next 7 years or however long we have. But the song is like this like poppy like, oh yeah, everybody get up, but the lyrics are like, wake up at 11:30 feeling like a bag of shit, and like just continuing to go on about how shitty he feels all the time. There's a line where it's I don't feel like getting lit. Why? Because I feel like shit. Ladies, tell me, do you feel like shit? Like it's total club anthem, all about feeling like just poop when you're having a bad health moment. And we go directly from that upbeat like happiness to another shot of him looking dead into the camera, and he expresses that his mental health has reached an ATL, which stands for all-time low. And kind of similar to that feeling like shit song, there's a moment where he's just talking about how awful he feels, and it cuts to him with like rave lighting, and he's singing about his severe anxiety to the point where he feels like he's gonna die because his like vision is flat and his heart is racing.
That very much felt like his onstage panic attacks or what he was talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
big time. And just like the feeling like shit song in general, just kind of the way that I think to some extent, and I'm 100% guilty of this myself. I think a lot of us are. We like will mask that feeling sometimes because it's embarrassing. It's like something you don't necessarily want to like discuss or bring up, or even if you're out and about, like you haven't found an excuse to go home again yet and hide. In those cases, sometimes it's like, yeah, I don't really feel it, but like I don't want to bring the room down or bring my friend group down, or in our case, really sometimes it's like, no, we actually have to feel like this and go pretend like we're in a really great mood and be funny on stage for like, however long.
5 times this weekend.
Way to go. Battle through it.
I don't know how you guys, as somebody that had their first and second panic attacks, and the only 2 I've ever had in my entire life, like almost a year ago, I don't know how anybody can deal with that kind of crap. Like I literally thought I was having a heart attack.
Stage health is real, my friend.
It truly is.
It is an absolute thing. This very depressing, all-time low mental health talk once again cuts into a very catchy tune and a visually interesting setup with the lighting on this one. And when I first watched it, it was my favorite song. I don't think it's my favorite anymore. I do think it's probably the most powerful song in that the message that it gets across. I think it might become the most talked about song long term. It's Welcome to the Internet. And it's equal parts catchy and depressing. 100%. Bo, I think, in this sequence is at his most evil. He has like a somewhere between Joker and the Devil vibe going on. At one point, he does this like haunted house worthy laugh that just is like impressively evil, frankly. But this whole song is the whole gist of it is about how basically we now have an entire generation of Ruths who grew up with everything at her fingertips her entire life. Now, literally, we live in a world now where all of us at any moment can Google anything your brain can conceive. Some better, some worse, as the song very quickly points out. And Ruth, something you pointed out that I thought was a very good point upon reviewing this is it takes 2 lines before we slip in the you could catch some news or some famous women's feet. And it's so casual. It's like, no big deal. And then it immediately starts to snowball and what those women's feet really. I mean, if you're into feet, cool, good for you. That's your thing, no big deal. That's a cool fetish. That's fine. But then we go from that to like a 9-year-old that died.
And then message a girl and groom her.
And message a girl, kill. Yeah. The stuff about like it says, you should kill your mom. The really powerful line is there's an article about why girls won't fuck you. Maybe you should build a bomb. I'm sorry. Here's why girls won't fuck you. Here's how you can build a bomb.
Yeah.
Boom, boom.
And I think one of the very powerful lines early is I think it's almost exactly the women's feet line, and the very next line is "Don't worry, this isn't a test." And it's kind of that idea of like on the internet,
just shake your head, not alone.
No one's watching, and yet everyone is watching, like
all the time.
It's. Do you want to fight racial justice or tweet a racial slur? Like racial injustice.
Both are easily available to you.
Yeah, about as easy. Yeah.
Be happy, be horny, be filled with rage. We've got a million different ways to engage.
This is the one too where he's got the mass shooting line in it too, isn't it?
Yes.
That one's later. If you're talking about the gift shop at the gun range, mass shooting at the mall.
Oh. Sorry, for someone that only watched it once, I don't have all the songs memorized.
So good. But he does talk about a lot of other awful things in this song.
Yeah. That's true. But this is also the one, it's got the very interesting contrast that happens. So there's a point where it turns from the darkness with the little green laser lights. Maybe is this the one? And then it's got like the shining rainbow all over his face.
It's like a swirling, almost like universal, like
universe, and it
stellar,
talks about
interstellar type stuff.
Yeah, and it's we were waiting for you, insatiable you. Mommy let you use her iPad when you were barely 2, which I know is something that's been driving you insane.
Driving me insane. I'm not even gonna lie. So, because it's a little bit confusing because before he gets to that part, he says that. Oh, go ahead, please.
I figured that out. At least that little bit I think I figured out. So he says right before that, just before your time, right before the towers fell, circa 99. He's not saying the iPad, the 2-year-old is in 99. He's saying in 99, this was catalogs, travel blogs, a chat room. And then
the internet was much more innocent.
So then he's saying we set our sight and spent our nights waiting for you. So it's in the future sometime when the 2-year-old.
Got you.
Now, it still doesn't answer who the 2-year-old with the iPad is, but it takes the iPad out of 99, which made no sense.
In my Charlie Day string theories I've been doing, like I looked up the iPad like originally came out, I want to say in like 2010 is the first generation, which would imply that if there's a 2-year-old that took mommy's iPad, like essentially saying grew up literally on the internet, like at as young of an age as possible, that person would be like 13 at most at this point in time, assuming that person got it like day one when the iPad came out. But I will admit this one confuses me because at one point Ruth and I both thought that 2-year-old was him. He was referring to himself. But Bo was born in 1990. The iPad was not available to him. The internet really was barely available in 1992. So Bo grew up in that last generation.
Yeah.
Right between Richie and I and you, Ruth, where he still had those younger years before the internet sunk its claws in entirely, but he was still obviously very, very young when the internet became the part of his world that it is.
Yes.
But yeah, 2-year-old is a mystery. I really don't know if that's what that's implying or who that's referring to.
Me either. And then there's a part that bothers me directly after that when he goes, "Your time is now, your inside's out, honey, you grew."
Yes.
And if we stick together, who knows what
we can do.
It was always the plan to put the world in your hand. Laugh. It really feels like it should say when you were only 2 or like when you were 2. Like it feels like there should be that last resolution, that last rhyme, but you never get that last rhyme. It goes to the last.
He cuts it off with a laugh.
And then the lights go down, the green laser lights come back, and it's the little chorus, the little haunting chorus comes right back, and it draws you right back into the internet's little game. And it's
I read a review of the special where they alluded to his character in that song to be like the traveling circus salesman with the top hat and the monocle.
Yes,
and I can't get that image out of my head since I read that line. And I thought it was perfect.
I will say I'm terrified in some ways of like how good he is at that character, but also I'm just gonna throw it out. Bo Burnham needs to play a villain in a horror movie. 100%, which might be 100%. Indicative of some of your theories, but homie is terrifying when he wants to be.
Well, yeah, I think I turned to you at some point during this. I was like, I think he's a genius. I think I never want to meet him. Like, I think that's
and for the record, I'm still hoping to open for him one day.
Yeah,
I to be very clear.
Yeah, I'm just putting that out there. Yeah. Yeah.
We cut to another one of those out of place sequences with Bo talking directly into the camera. He's wearing a headlamp. He's having a minor freak out. He's talking about the idea that he's like, oh my God, I think I might actually finish this thing, but that's not going to happen. I'm never going to finish this thing because if I finish this thing, that means I would not be able to work on it. And I'm not going to do that. So fuck you. I don't know who this is for. I'm not talking to anybody right now because I'm never finishing this. And he like walks away in anger and then immediately transitions to our second Jeffrey Bezos song. And this is the one that you're talking about earlier, where it's like, you did it. You won capitalism.
Well, he also said during that moment, I believe that like, then I'd have to go live my life.
Yes. And I'm not going to do that.
And that part stuck with me.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah. 100%. Good catch. Another uncomfortable moment immediately follows. That he gives us a lot of these times where it's almost like the Jeff Bezos song is just like a chance for us to breathe before we go back into like his head again for a second. Because as shitty as the Jeffrey Bezos situation is, and again, as big of an issue that is in our world and in our country, like it is almost like easy listening by comparison to some of his other tracks. Like, if that makes sense, I don't know, but it's intense music, but it's not intense lyrics as much. But it does, this immediately cuts into just that sequence we talked about where we are watching, we only see Bo's face. He's watching a monitor that we can't see. We're hearing laughter coming from the monitor, and Bo looks horrified. He looks terrified. He looks like he is in anguish and just like shocked at, like almost as like if he can't believe these people are laughing at this concept. But his laughter does the thing almost again like the movie The Joker, where they talk about like, oh, some people think my life's a tragedy, but it's actually a comedy. And he actually goes into like a jokery smile. Very intense facial expression. Very emotive. Yeah. I put here too, this continues with that theme of Bo sees his life as a tragedy, and he's just constantly concerned as to why people seemingly laugh at his pain.
But there's something to be said about the fact that like he can't stop either. that just plays into all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm wondering, because also he packages it that way. Like, so is it even so much that he's upset with people laughing at his pain, or that he's upset with himself for time?
Which that again ties into the very ending of the special there too, because he's watched himself and he cracks a smile at the end. I'm gonna keep bringing that up. So it's just does he feel like he's just another cog in the machine, even though he's talking about breaking the machine at different points in the special? But no, we can't do that. And then eventually he walks up the door.
Nah.
Yeah. And we cut to another of what we would call like the stand-up sections here, where it's just him and a microphone. Though there's one very obvious thing in this version of it that's different than earlier. Bo is practically he's wearing like whitey tighties, or maybe he's wearing very little clothing, is what I'm getting at, which is not normal for a stand-up showcase. Or an open mic. Sometimes an open mic, people are weird, but the first one, he almost looks like he's at least attempting to be like dressed for the job. This one, it's almost like how a lot of people were like mid quarantine, where they're just like, why in the fuck would I wear pants to a Zoom meeting? That's just and in this case, he's kind of doing that same thing. He's doing a stand-up bit. He also, though, really opens up, I think, a lot of how his mind truly does work to some extent, because this is where he goes into an intense bit about how the real world should really only be used like a coal mine, and that you enter it enough to get information so that you can use it in the very much more real world of the digital space, much like we're doing here. God damn it, we're part of the problem. And they have that seamless transition, almost jarring again, where you're like, you have to like rethink, like, wait, what the fuck? Because he goes straight
I
from
that
like
part. I thought that was
100%. Yeah, agreed.
Well,
but he goes from the mining of real world content to use digitally to, and what's the deal with pirate maps? Like,
and that part was interesting to me, because that was very much a Republican talking point for this whole time. Was the like, this virus is to make us afraid and to keep us inside and to keep us apart from each other. And while I think the Republican talking point was like someone engineered it to be this way. I think Bo is very much commenting on like whether or not it was engineered to be this way doesn't matter. Like, that is what now we have a generation of people who have been conditioned to think is about how dangerous the outside world is. And that's like a dangerous way to think, because it's not safer.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. It's kind of an interesting twist on something that we see flooding once again all over the internet all the time, because of course we know everybody's thoughts on everything always.
Yeah.
Which gives me a funny feeling, which is the next song we're going to talk about. And that song, I now, as I look back on it, I honestly think I just was overthinking it. But I had the hardest time interpreting this song because the lyrics on this one are a little bit abstract, in that he's just kind of listing a lot of seemingly ordinary things before getting into the chorus, which is, here it is again, that funny feeling. Through our conversations, I do now settle on this just being in general about having a mental health crisis or a breakdown in your mental health. Everything, I think, to some extent, from just like a little bit of the blues version of depression to like a full-on like can't get out of bed type of situation. But there are a lot of really, really good, interesting lines that are again, I think I am losing some of the meaning and maybe some of them, but some of the ones that jumped out to me, Richie talked about one. He talks about a gun range at the gift shop and then a mass shooting at the mall. And another big one was...
Wasn't it a gift shop at the gun range?
Yeah, I said that. A gift shop at the gun range and then a mass shooting at the mall.
Yeah.
And then the other one was somebody like delivering a self-care book, but it's hand delivered by a drone, meaning somebody thought enough to care about somebody, but not enough to actually reach out to them personally. Just send them the gift on Amazon and you're done with it.
To me, the most interesting line wasn't part of the music. There's the projection of him in the woods. He's got the guitar, and before he starts singing, he says, I'm not really a good singer and I can't really play guitar, but I'm going to try it.
Which is complete bullshit.
Which he knows is bullshit.
Yeah.
We know is bullshit. So it's like, what? It's like he's playing a character in that moment. Like, the campfire, like, kind of like.
It's because every
like the
time
scary
there's a
story around
situation.
a campfire kind of vibe. Like, I'm telling a scary story around a campfire about depression.
I feel like every time something like that pops up, that's what the person always says.
Always
that is the
says,
staple line. Is like, well, I'm not that good of a singer, and I'm not very good at guitar.
Yeah,
like,
that asshole at every party. Like, I just bring my guitar with me everywhere, but I'm not that good at it.
I'm not that good.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been a lot of lines, if I'm not mistaken, in this special where he does something similar to that, where he said, like, even you guys talked about it earlier, he'll do a staple line from comedy that it's just like, insert stock footage here, and this is what's supposed to be said in this moment, no matter what. Like, at the beginning,
yeah.
And I think that's what that was for this scene, probably.
Yeah.
I think to a little bit of the theory Ruth brought up earlier, this sequence visually, he seems more sinister to me than I noticed anywhere. Like the way the shadows are on his face, the way his beard is out, just like again, this could easily be the like first few minutes of like a generic slasher movie where this guy like pulls like his, oh, by the way, there's an axe in this guitar and I'm going to hunt you all down now. Like,
no, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because I agree with you now that I've now settled on like this is about mental health and when you feel it coming back again. But my first instinct when I first watched it is because I've, and this may be a particularly female experience, I don't know, like y'all may relate to this, but like there are moments sometimes when I start noticing like, oh, this celebrity I idolize is about to kind of start becoming a problem, or where we're about to start seeing some issue from this person. That was at first the funny feeling that I felt, because it was the sinister backdrop, it was the weird noises, and that was the funny feeling I was feeling, was the like, oh,
the funny feeling. The song gives you a funny feeling actively.
Gives me a funny feeling about like, oh, like, are we supposed to feel uncomfortable about him right now? Like, are we supposed to be having the funny feeling about him? But yeah, on more listens, I definitely agree it's about mental health. But that was like the knee-jerk funny feeling for me.
I have a question here, and as people who have watched it more than once, do we start to see less and less light as this whole special goes on?
That's interesting.
Does it get dark?
It does start like fully lit the first few shots.
And then as it gets to the end, the only light he has is the door. And when he walks through the door, he's back in the spotlight. Yeah, he's back in the spot he doesn't want to be at, but like he basically settles and falls back into place with it. Yeah. But like, does each song, like, I know the song, the internet song, it's dark, but it's got the green light still. And then I feel like in this song, maybe that's when it was a lot darker. And I know that he starts having the interlude bits where it's just the spotlight on him. And I'm curious if it gets less and less light with each song. Miles is going to watch it again now.
I'm absolutely going to watch it again. I've already been planning on it for sure. Yeah. Sorry. There's another lyric on this song too. And this is the third mention and most direct mention of his dissociative disorder referencing, because he actually uses the line, I think, Googling derealization and being terrified of what you find. Yeah,
I wanted to Google that, but I didn't, because I knew I didn't want to play his game.
We did. I demanded it, actually. I was like, I think I looked at Ruth and I was like, are you really going to make me do it? But just for the record, derealization is a feeling that one's surroundings are not real, especially as a symptom of mental disturbance. So this is very much saying he feels almost out of body to some extent. Now, this
everything else.
Then immediately after that, we're gonna have to do something weird here in just a second, but I'm gonna go through this last section real quick before we do. We cut from this kind of campfire acoustic melody to another sequence of Bo, once again talking to the camera, but this one is different because he's so far back and there's so much stuff in the foreground. And he starts to talk about how he's a year in to this special, which you can tell is like mentally fucking with him. But I labeled this on my notes the rage quit sequence, because that literally what it reminded me of is like when you get pissed off at a video game and like you just, you know, turn it off, walk away, can't handle it anymore.
That's when he gets angry and then walks towards the camera and actually.
Yes, and this is that sequence where I'm like, this was all staged. Like this wasn't just like there's a reason that suddenly there's so much stuff in the foreground that in other sequences was never there.
Yeah.
So
and that's
we
one
just. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's one of the things that made me recoil. Like for me, like male anger is something that I always like will have a recoil from, and that was very much the reaction that scene drew from me.
So, Ruth, congratulations. We have hit a milestone, because I did not know that this room recording will cut off at the 2-hour mark, and we're about to hit that. So what I'm actually about to do real quick is we are going to take a quick pause. I'm going to open up another room, and then we're just going to jump right into our conversation here. We'll open up with a long shot on a wake up, which seems perfect. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So we're back from our rage quit of talking for so fucking long about this thing. Again, I knew it was going to happen. It's fine. Bo sets this up, this elaborate shot. He walks out. He pushes his stuff over. And we cut from that outburst of anger, which is also very relatable, to a much more somber Bo back in his more uniform, up close, directly talking to us into the camera. And I think this is the most difficult scene in the entire thing, just to visually to experience, not even visually, both. The whole overwhelming feeling of this shot is just hard to watch, because it starts with Bo in the manner that we have so far come to expect, where he kind of gives us an update on how it's going, but all Bo can get out is, I am not well, and literally just burst into tears in a manner that like just is heartbreaking. And we stay on that shot for a moment, and we literally just hear this man weep. I mean, it's not even crying, it is weeping openly, painful tears. And then we zoom right into the camera where it's looking at us dead on the eye. And we get this, I believe it's a made up, like it's an artificial thing that he's controlling. I don't think it's an old clip, but he's basically recreated a moment where, as if we were a live audience with him in this arena, where he's thanking us directly and talking to how much we mean to him, as, you know, like how much he thanks us for everything we do for him, while crying.
So for one thing, we've talked several times about, is he acting, is he being genuine? That's one scene that if he is acting, that's terrifying. Like, that's scary.
Give the man all of the acting awards. Absolutely. And also don't trust him with anything ever.
Never trust anything he says. Because that's frankly just like very manipulative, if that's acting. I know that's
I thought he was acting in that. Like, I really did. I just because it's
that part made me tear up on multiple
down in the
viewings.
corner like this, where he can do whatever he wants to.
It's definitely like set up well and like shot well. It's just how genuine is the emotion behind that.
I'm sure it's a mixture.
Maybe I'm a sucker, because I fell for it hook, line, and sinker if it was manipulative, because I mean, like, it felt very, very painful and raw.
But I think, and then the part you're going to goes into that song "Hands Up," right?
Correct. Yes. All eyes on me.
Into, you know, kind of the same thing we were talking about earlier, like the canned responses that happen in these particular situations. I think in this part, he's kind of playing like a pop star, because he kind of does that kind of speech that a star does, like the end of their concert, and is like, you know,
like very similar to his Kanye rant, which
like knowing you're all here with me, like feeling you with me, you know, thank you, and like, you know, I hate to ask one more thing, but you can do one more fucking thing, and then it's like, get your fucking hands up.
Yeah,
and that's what it's very like demanding, like get the up.
One
And
time
all
it's
eyes on me, eyes
directly,
on
what
me.
are you doing? Get the fuck up. Like he's like angry into the camera. And that's where he actually like grabs it and is like swinging it around the room.
Yeah, it's really like aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's real close with him. Are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun? It's almost over. It's
that was one of the other big lines that jumped out at me. That is very. Are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun? It's almost over. It's just begun. That has, to me, also overtones of something more sinister than just his relationship with the audience.
The audience. Yep. Yep.
Incredible shot. The lighting on this, it's so unique. It's visually stunning.
Something that again, obviously he planned it that way, but like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it, but at the same time, I feel like it's putting you into his headspace a lot more. There's so many shots in this whole special where you're watching him edit basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the scene after this,
we see him editing that current
showing the shot. Yeah. And he does that so many different times. And I think that's just like, and even earlier when you see him critiquing, it's after you've already heard the chorus of that song that he previously showed like 8 times already. And I think that's kind of the beauty in it too, is that like, it's supposed to be fresh and new and we haven't seen it, but he's showing you the drone and the repetitiveness of it over and over and over again. It's almost
with
like
that creeping music along the whole way.
It's like he wants to drive you crazy with him in a way, which at points in this, I feel like he almost does. So
he does. This whole song feels like one big kind of like breakdown. Like it's a whole, you say the ocean's rising, like I give a shit. You say their whole world's ending, honey. It already did. Yeah. You're not going to slow it. Heaven knows you tried. Got it. Good. Now get inside. It just sticks with you. I mean, it's so easy to feel defeated in situations like social justice, quote unquote. It's like, well, how is any one person going to make a difference? It's so overwhelming, especially with the internet telling you all the bad things all the time. It's easy to just give up and go inside. And I think that's like,
and the whole world ending, it already did thing. I think a large part of that is like maybe not literally in this sense. I mean, arguably he could be talking of things like global or climate change or whatever. But I think more so he's talking about we've poisoned our society with this basically uncontrollable monster. And the old saying is you can't put Pandora back in the box or whatever, you know, and the internet very much feels like a Pandora's box type of situation. And I know it's so old man yells at clouds to be like, oh, things are so much better before the internet. And obviously you look at our society now, and a lot of that is just arguably not true. But realistically, is it? I mean, is the fact that I can get a car pick me up with a touch of a button and I don't have to drive to Taco Bell if I don't want to really worth the invasion of privacy, the predatory practices, the cyberbullying, the dissociative identity disorders that are now more prevalent, the depression, the anxiety, all of it is just like, was the trade worth it? It probably not.
Yeah.
I'll kind of argue that is that I think human beings that are terrible and do creepy, unnatural things would do that regardless of the internet. I think social media and the internet in general makes it easier for us to hear about these things.
I don't know, man. Have you ever had to mail somebody a dick pic? It's a lot of work, and it costs you 35 cents at least, probably more now.
Well, back in our day, it stands for like 27 cents.
That's part of the welcome to the internet song that I don't think we talked about. And that's the part when it's like all the things really quickly, and then it's like, here's pictures of this dude's dick. Like, it's creepy and kind of off-putting.
And then he turns it on the woman. Don't act surprised. You like it, you whore. Yeah.
You like it, you whore. Like, you were here on the internet, so being here on the internet was consenting to that. We didn't tell you that up top, but this is what you agreed to.
Right. Yeah. Those TOS, man, they're crazy.
Yeah. Which that's definitely a situation where I don't think that's Bo saying Bo's done that. I think that's him like taking the persona,
taking the evil side of the internet. 100%. Yeah, agreed. Right back from this beautiful like concert ending performance type of song. We go into more long, ominous shots of him, of all the meticulous things that he had to do. We kind of go back and look at some of the things that now we've seen versus earlier in the movie. He was showing us before we saw these finished shots, how he was setting it up. Now he shows us more of that, but it's almost like how the magician shows you the trick was done, where we're seeing all these measurements and sound tests and light tests. And again, I cannot stress enough that like horror music, ominous, like just chilling vibes going through it all.
And this is another situation, another theme I think we see, and this is kind of where you start noticing it as a theme, is the idea of endings. Because he does talk that he's having a hard time ending it. Mm-hmm. And now, in my opinion, there's 3 or 4 different places that would make a great ending, and then it keeps going. Mm-hmm. And there's a very dark line that resonated with me very young, and that is the secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits. Better roll them now before something else goes wrong. And that's almost what came to mind for me with this special, was like him trying to figure out when to roll the credits, which is a very labored metaphor for suicide. Try to find that ending.
Yeah. That's dark, but absolutely, I think plays in. I mean, seems relevant to the theme and the message that the things that he touched on throughout this show. Yeah,
because I think that concert ending could have been the first ending. Like, I think it wouldn't have felt weird for it to end there. And then actually, it's not fully jumping ahead a little bit. Like it goes Hands Up, Eyes on Me, which is that concert song, could have ended there. And then it's got Possible Ending Song, which is not the last song, or not the last thing. And then it's Any Day Now, which literally is like, this is going to end any day now.
Yeah, dark. And actually, to your point too, right in between there, we get the final him talking to the camera section, which he's been struggling with more and more from beginning to end. And the last one we saw him, he says, "I am not well." He starts crying. This one, the only thing he says is, "I think I'm done," which is another double entendre type of thing where it's like, is he done with life or is he done with his special?
Definitely in the pitch and the tone and the way he says it, like, really draws that emotion from you too. When you hear him say it, you're like, what does he mean?
And he already said earlier, Richie, you pointed out the earlier segment where what did he say? It was I'm blanking on the like second time that he did it. I can't be done with it because then I would have to go back to living my life, and I'm not going to do that. Yes. I think I'm done with we know how he feels about going back to life. Just creepy is what it comes off as.
Well, to go a little more lighthearted, to take it at face value, this special is a much longer special than most typical comedy specials, especially on Netflix. So
honestly, like a week since it's come out, I've been so relieved that there hasn't been a headline. Honestly, truly, honestly.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. For now, we do get the implication that this is he's just done with the show, because this is when we cut to your ending song number 1, which he announces it as possible ending song number 1, take 1 test.
And then just nails it.
Come on. Well, and then it's also edited, and his hair is all perfect. And there's definitely.
And this is, I think, when you see him, I could be wrong, but he kind of has his hair cut back more, and he looks a lot more like younger Bo that.
It starts off with him with shorter hair.
It matches how he looked in the very first song.
And then it overlaps later where he's got the long hair with the beard where it's up close on his head, but you can see in the background the younger version of him.
Well, and there's also that part where and this may be kind of what you're talking about, but he says, "I've been working on this special for 9 months now, I think." But then there's a flash of not even like him looking like younger Bo. Like, it's a flash of, I think, younger Bo. Literally just like a maybe 1 second long clip of just younger Bo looking this way. It's like, "I've been working on this special 9 months, younger Bo." And then he just goes on talking. It's like I've been working on this 9 months, and then it's him. I've actually been working on it ever since back then, because this is how long I've been struggling with these things. But that's another one of those flashes, and I'm like, that for sure wasn't an accident, but what was that?
Yeah, the intentional seems to be another theme. Like every some of the even the way he uses like the negative space with sound and things of that nature is really interesting. We do get this ending song, which, as you already pointed out, I did have a note. It gave me like theater vibes. And that it truly did a recap. I've been finding it to be one of the songs that I listen to most often, just because it ties in all of the other previous songs, including some of my favorite lines from all of the other songs. One of the lines that definitely sat out to me was, "Does anybody want to joke with no one laughing in the background?" That one was very real for the pandemic. Trying to even do like comedy on Zoom, that felt relatable, just because it's like you're talking to a fucking wall, almost like a podcast. The probably the most memorable line to me was, "How about I sit on my couch next time and watch you for a while?" Which, in one hand, I took it as like an inspiring thing, because it's like, God damn it, I do want to be that person.
I remember you saying, like, "I'm trying, Bo, I'm trying."
Yeah, I mean, 100%. But also, I do think like that really was more of his intent, was to be like, I can't be under this constant pressure to like give you what you need, or daddy's giving you some content, if you will. Those just. It's a funny line, but it's also I think like he almost like a cry for help, like, please somebody take this burden away from me.
He's disassociated at the end again, watching himself from the couch, watching himself do a bit where he cracks a smile at the end.
We in that last song does end. We go back through, we touch on some of those favorite lines. Richie pointed out, he flips the line, "If I wake up and my house is full of smoke, I am going to panic. So somebody please tell me a joke. And if I become fully irrelevant and broke, I will panic. So somebody please tell me a joke." He claims during that song that all he ever wanted was just a little bit of everything all of the time. And it ends, the last thing that we see is his voice gets distorted. It cuts to him fully naked at his keyboard, and you can tell he's blinded by the spotlight in a manner that he's uncomfortable. And the last line was, "I'll come out with my hands up, you've got me surrounded," or something of that nature, very close to that.
I'm gonna give you what you want.
Yeah. And all of that leads up to the big moment where we go outside. And I will say, I did laugh just kind of at our conversation. Ruth and I, one of the first things we're like is, where the fuck was this shot? Like, where is this like little building that, you know, he's up against? And he goes full like Flintstones, where he's like out like Fred Flintstone pounding on the door because he's locked out from inside. It's very cartoonish. Richie already pointed out. We get that last moment where he's like, he actually is like looking really melancholy, really sad, again, maybe bitter. But at just the very last moment, we just curl that little smile. Again, we do find out that that house was featured in Make Happy. So I think it's just like his home, and it has like this little like studio that he uses for production or whatever. But really cool ending. I like the final smile. It leaves you, I guess, with maybe just the slightest tinge of hope. Am I reading too much into that?
I was say I found it a little unsettling.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it could definitely be that too. Like he's just full on cracking.
Mm-hmm.
Or
just like he knows what he just did, and he's.
That could be in that deeper meaning, is he's just almost proud of how manipulative he is.
Well, he's going crazy because he did everything he didn't want to do, but now he's not fighting it anymore. Now he's leaning into it, and he's just mentally disturbed, and that's all you can do is crack a smile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ruth already pointed it out, but that was actually not the final song, because over the credits, we get a song that just is a very kind of upbeat sound, but The words are, it'll stop any day now. And again, what will stop?
What will stop? Is it the mental episode that'll stop any episode, or like,
or just
my heart? Like, yeah,
the heart, inside.
Yeah.
I will point it out. I made a TikTok about it, and I do think it's funny, but I also think it's kind of like a Netflix get your shit together situation, because I pointed out when we first watched it, like the very last shot of the film, like through the credits and everything, is if you are suffering from mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, please contact this. And then literally over the contact information, Netflix put the suggestions up, and it was like BoJack Horseman and Lucifer, which like, if you're like fully trying to kill yourself, please go watch the Bo Burnham special, and then BoJack Horseman.
Oh my gosh.
Again, cannot stress enough. If you are having anything like that, please do get help. Talk to your friends, call a number, like reach out, because it does last forever. It's not temporary.
And then I have to wonder, because we talk about everything Bo Burnham does is intentional. He knew what platform he was going to release this on. Is it another comment? You're struggling, try Netflix, you know?
Yeah, your comment blew up on my TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, you made the joke on your TikTok of like, it makes the "Are you still, or do you want to keep going?" button a lot more, a lot darker.
Yeah. Are you sure you're still watching?
I do think we should throw in there, but like, again, in all seriousness, please reach out. There's so many people. There's a lot of people. You think everyone's happy-go-lucky all the time, then you find out some of the people that are the happiest are the ones struggling the most. So you got to ask for help, or else you're not going to get it. So please reach out. It's sometimes you're too afraid to talk to your friends or your loved ones, but they're the ones that want to help you the most. So
absolutely,
please reach out.
Yeah. We did touch on a lot of this already, so we don't have to go too much longer on this. But that last section, the hashtag deeper meaning, we had the relationship advice. I'm sorry, the relationship to his audience is really the kind of overtone. Also, generally the relationship to the internet, which could be interchangeable. I think you could argue. I did think it was interesting that this is definitely not a new thing at all. Going all the way back to his special. Now, I did watch clips of Words, which was like his very first special, and I didn't pick up on anything. I wasn't able to get the entire thing, unfortunately. But I also went back and watched What and Make Happy, as well as a bunch of things in between. During What, his first, I think, hour special, he ends with that song, Bo, We Think We Know You. Where he's like cueing the different things, like his father, his agent, and like a friend from high school. And basically the whole point is like people think they know Bo Burnham because of who he is on stage, but he's not that person. He goes into that farther, but in between the specials of What and Make Happy, Bo performed at the YouTube Awards, and actually, fun fact, he was actually introduced by Katy Perry, who was like very sexual towards him, and he was 18, made a comment about him being 18, and he kind of shrugged it off. And then later, he does that song in his song Kill Yourself, where he basically says, if you're the type of person that takes meaning in Katy Perry lyrics, actually kill yourself. This isn't a joke. For everybody else, I'm joking. But like, it seemed like there was almost like some retaliation there. But during that performance, he sang the song Welcome to YouTube. And even early on, that entire song just roasted the platform of YouTube itself at the YouTube Awards. And one line in particular really, really stuck out to me. He said, upload a video, you've got nothing to lose, except all your friends and the approval of your parents. And that, I think, was one of the early signs of him like vocalizing what this fame has really done to him.
So I think it's something interesting. I was talking with another friend about like Jake Paul and like Logan Paul earlier today,
who I watched draw with Floyd Mayweather earlier. Oh my god,
quote unquote. And they were discussing how those two almost have the first real-time overlap of Disney kid problems, Disney child star problems, and internet star problems, and we're watching those kind of grow up in a petri dish. I think Bo Burnham is a good example of stand-up problems and internet problems. We're seeing meld into a little petri dish. Yeah. And he's kind of the first little science experiment of that we're watching grow up in real time, and it's
terrifying.
Yeah.
I just want to know what Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather drew. You said they were drawing.
I think a butterfly. I think it was
that's what it was. Yeah. A couple more after the welcome to YouTube thing. Just more examples of this relationship dynamic that has been a long running theme. We already talked about the Kanye song earlier. In that, he talks about his burrito being overstuffed, and he keeps repeating the lines of like, I wouldn't have got the lettuce if I knew it wouldn't fit. I wouldn't have got the cheese if I knew it wouldn't fit. I wouldn't have got whatever if I knew it wouldn't fit. And I think that was really him breaking down and talking about how I didn't know, like, the cheese looked good, the lettuce looked good, the meat looked good, the salsa looked good, the YouTube channel looked good at the time, but I didn't really know what I was getting. I didn't know it was going to be stuffed into my tortilla, my metaphorical tortilla, and would just be having all of this other stuff falling out of me, essentially. And that was a little bit backed up. Like, that's a bit of a stretch, I'll be honest, but because he follows that Kanye song with this very, very, in my mind, sincere moment in Make Happy, where he actually brings the audience lights up, which he has previously even talked about how he hates that because he doesn't like to have to look at the faces of the people he's performing for. But he intentionally brings the lights up, talks about how everybody's kind of the same in this moment, and basically directly tells people that he was born of privilege, he got lucky, and he's still unhappy. And for the love of God, if you can live your life without needing an audience, do it, because it's ruined his life, essentially, is the idea that I'm left with right before he performs that song of Make Happy, or Are You Happy, excuse me, which pretty clearly shows us that he is not.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's get down to what happens next from inside perspective. You think this could win an award? Any kind of awards?
Oh, that's what I was kind of lost with you. I think
like,
it should
call a health check on Bo Burnham.
Ruth already pointed that out.
Guys, let's go knock on Bo's door.
You could throw this. You could throw this side question in there. Say, like, I don't know how Netflix could do Oscar-wise, but I consider this an actual movie, not like a stand-up special.
I kind of agree with you on that. Yeah.
Could this win an Oscar or something along those lines? And if it does, what does that do to his mental health? Because it's like, here, we're rewarding you for telling us all this stuff that is seriously affecting you. And I feel like it would just feed the beast almost.
It's another theme on the internet where the internet will eat up like unhappiness and then like turn its back on you as soon. That's something he has dealt with a lot himself. And this would just be another example of that.
I to answer your question, Richie, I do think that it deserves awards. I mean, if nothing else, I think it deserves a lot of awards, possibly acting, directing, but I would say, like, almost undebatable, it deserves an editing award. The editing is out of this world. Like, I mean, just I don't even understand how he came up with the ideas of how to do a lot of that stuff, frankly. Just such a creative genius.
I think the Golden Globes or whatever, which there's been one of them where Netflix has been like racking up until like last year, all the awards. So I bet it'll have a good run over there. Because again, I said it earlier on, this thing, when I was Googling reviews and things like that, it's being very well received on IMDb. It's got a 9 out of 10 right now. So like, it's connecting with people. So it clearly has a message that's reaching people. Now, whether it's every part of every message or one way or another, maybe it's just one of those Inception type things where it does something different for everyone that watches it. But this is going to be one of those things where I feel like people will be talking about it, years from now still, about like, especially if God forbid, if something does happen to him, if he does something, like, oh my gosh, like think about how much
something or has done something.
Yeah. Like we watched this guy literally go crazy and everyone did nothing about it to get him help.
Right, which ultimately points into like the bigger overlying problems of like going all the way back to like the Puppet song, where on this global scale, definitely national and for sure global too, we have all these like huge issues that we all collectively are like, that's wrong. Like we know that's not okay. We shouldn't be doing this. Who do we tell to make it stop? Because nobody in power seems to actually care. And like as we get into a world where politicians openly commit crimes and have no consequences, or I don't know, you have an insurrection on a Capitol building of a first world country that just doesn't even get investigated. That could never happen. It's impossible. It's outrageous. Why would we even bring it up? It's wild. Yeah,
because it was patriotic.
In the movie, it'd be poor writing.
Clearly, yeah, exactly. Clearly, everyone doesn't know that it's wrong, and that's the issue.
And that becomes even more terrifying, and frankly, makes me understand. Like not again. Don't do it. It's not just for a year, but like. It does like it gets to a point where the weight becomes so much that it's hard to like be like how Ruth said earlier. How does one person make a difference? How do I make any positive change? How do I move forward in this fucking shithole world? It's not a shithole country. It's a shithole world that we're currently living in. And how do you navigate that?
I'll give you one piece of comfort, possibly. Whenever I feel like that, I honestly, my mind goes to two different moments in South Park, and both of them are Butters moments. The first one when he gets broken up with and he's crying and he talks about the beautiful sadness. The second I've talked about on our show before, when it becomes like bullying and people pushing their views on you. I think of when he tells his grandma she's old and she's going to die soon and he's still going to be here. And that's literally like
it's a beautiful moment
that has gotten me through. And granted, there's people our age that agree with that same side on a lot of things, but like a lot of it, I think is just an older way of thinking. And eventually we'll be those older people and there'll be something that we're like, I don't even understand why people care about this. It's stupid and ridiculous.
People will be telling us we'll die soon. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Like, I think it's a cyclical thing, but maybe because of the internet and social media, we're not masking our feelings anymore. And everyone's like, I'm being bold by expressing how I feel and not holding back. Where in reality, I feel like it's more bold to maybe hold back and not just tell the whole world and spew all these opinions out all the time, because that's what everyone's doing right now. So
you mean we don't have to share all of our thoughts and opinions on everything all the time? Shit, I've been live tweeting this entire conversation.
I think Bo Burnham said that a few times in the special, actually, about how sometimes you just keep your mouth shut. And I just, too many people think their voice matters because we say one voice should matter. But in regards, if I have different opinions on everything, how much am I spewing out there and how much controversy am I causing? And we're doing more yelling and waiting for our turn to talk than we are on actually having discussions with people. And I think that's where a lot of the issues lie, including mental health issues. Like we just kind of gloss over them like, oh yeah, that guy's got mental health problems. It's serious stuff that we should be talking about more.
Literally everyone I know. Everyone I know.
But we're not even in the mental health month anymore, so nobody cares anymore because we're in June now. So
not everyone has a major problem, but everybody I know has some sort of issue that they've dealt with, myself included. It's a global it's the true global pandemic.
I don't know, man. I think I'm good.
Oh my God, Ruth, that's the first time I've heard you be funny.
And the fact that we're all laughing at the joke that we just made just proves that we're all terribly human beings.
It's true.
Should be watching
honestly, Ruth, I adore you. You're one of my favorite people in this whole planet. I'm glad we got to experience Bo Burnham's Inside together. Do you have any other like final thoughts or anything that you wanted to get across today that you were not able to?
No, I think I was able to say my piece. I mean, obviously, I think it's a artistic rendering of the pandemic. I don't know for sure if I can confidently call it a comedy special, but it doesn't mean it's not like amazing.
I completely concur with that. And 100%, Ruth is not only one of my favorite people, she truly is one of the funniest people I know. Definitely check out all of her content at funny_4girl. Did I get that right?
Funny_4_girl. I need a new username. We'll get there.
I just got to remember the underscores. But no, check her out online, support her comedy and all that good stuff. TikTok, she's great. Talks about a lot of mental health issues sometimes, actually. More physical health issues, but you're an advocate for all health. Richie, what about you, sir? Was there anything else from your viewing of Bo Burnham's Inside that you would like to discuss that we didn't talk about tonight?
I would just like to say, leave it to a best darn whatever we are in this current week to take a 1.5 hour special and almost double the runtime of the actual piece while we discuss.
That's what we do, baby. That's what we do.
That's what we do best. That's why we do best and the darndest. But
that's just how we roll.
That's what we diddly darn do.
Woohoo!
You can follow me at thewiz_kid23. You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. That's all over social media. He's one of the funniest looking people I know.
Nice.
For the title of the Ruth thing earlier.
This special hit me hard. It hit me really, really hard. I've watched this thing literally like 12 or 13 times now. I've laughed. I've cried. I've got depressed. I've gotten happy. I've hit a spectrum. And like, there are times, like, I'll be real. There were literally times where I had the thought, like, holy shit, do I need to just kill myself? Because like, I'm not this talented and what the fuck am I doing right now? But to end on a positive note, something that this special has done for me personally has made me evaluate what I want as a comedian. And this is where I'm going to get so pretentious and douchey. It's going to happen. I warned you. What I want as a comedian. And I write a lot of jokes that I am proud of and I think are funny and I enjoy performing. But what I really want to do is have a positive impact, or at least my interpretation of a positive impact. I want the ideas that I have that I feel would make the world a better place. I want to communicate those and I want to get those across. And I want to do so through the power of writing jokes, which is a skill that I'm, working on always getting better at. So I guess as dark and depressing and upsetting as this special can be, I did find motivation and inspiration in it that I'm looking forward to pursuing.
Okay.
So that is my heavy final thought on Bo Burnham Inside. I do also just want to take a moment. We talked a lot about the relationship of entertainers and performers on this show tonight. And I just want to say, first of all, I think everybody who ever tunes into our show or listens to us talk about anything for any period of time, that's super cool. And we really appreciate it. And I hope you keep doing it because I truly do want to get to a place where I can resent you one day. So keep supporting the show. That is my ultimate goal. So keep at it, guys. But really, thank you guys so much. Do come back again next week. We'll probably not be as dark, but we are talking about the Mansion family, season 11, episode 12 of The Simpsons. So we'll see if we can break our 2 hour and 36 minute record for this show. Once again, thank you so much, Ruth. Make sure you come back and see us again next week.
They just discovered a tomb full of chocolate and hazelnuts. They believe it's the tomb of Pharaoh Rocher. And I just want to tell everybody out there, yes, the world is smoking right now, but Miles and I will definitely call you with a joke.
It's true. Do it. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.